Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Mike's on. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board town hall and mailing to the officially designated newspapers a list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would take place at the town hall at 7 p.m. on Monday, December 16, 2019.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Well, welcome, folks, to the meeting of the Millburn Zoning Board of Adjustment. Please turn off the sound. If it vibrates and you know that you must answer a text or have a conversation, plenty of room in the back of the building here on the third floor. The answer is yes, I've got to do it now. 3 doors here, so you can leave and go back, do your business in the back of the building, come back when you're finished. Now, a word of caution to you. If you are not happy with the results of your hearing tonight, either because you are an applicant and your application was denied, or you are an objector and the application that you've objected to was granted over your objection, then you do have the right to appeal. Given the ordinances here in Millburn and the municipal land use law, a state statute, your remedy is to take an appeal directly to the Superior Court of New Jersey, Law Division, sitting in Essex County, which is in Newark. Okay. One thing that I do want to say is if we have objectors here tonight, I'm going to ask you to please be kind to your applicant and vice versa. When we leave here tonight, we have to live together, and if we are nasty and not nice to each other tonight, it tends to carry over into real life. This is not real life in here tonight. Okay, now we have a problem. The problem is we've got lots and lots of cases, one of which is a very, very big case that has gone on for some time and will go on for some time longer. It's scheduled for tonight. It's a carryover case. And if we put it on, it's listed first on your agendas. By the way, folks, and I'll stop for a minute now, if you'd like, on the desk directly in front of me, on the right-hand side is a pile of tonight's agenda. So you can see where at least you're listed. Doesn't mean you'll be heard there. And to the left is a one-page summary of how we conduct these meetings. And I'm going to quit now for a minute. You can come on up and get one of each if you'd like. Now, There are 7 cases listed tonight. The last case on the agenda will not be heard. 8 Wordsworth Road, Justin and Allison Green. So there are 6 cases. The big case that I was talking about is listed first. It's not going to be heard first. It'll be heard third. That is New Jersey Energy. And the first case that'll be heard, if in fact the folks are here, and I'll ask right now, Corey and Jill Schneider, are you here in the room? Well, apparently they're not going to pursue their case. This is a second,
Well, we don't know that for sure, do we?
we don't know it for sure, but I said apparently they're not. And this is the second time they've been on the agenda. Yeah, so we're probably not going to hear that case tonight. The next case we will hear, that'll be the first case. It'll be Etai Harrell at 26 Clyde Hills Road. Yes, you're here and you're ready. All right, that case is also a carryover case. As a matter of fact, every case is a carryover case except Beck. So we're not going to hear Schneider, at least we don't think so. Harrell will be first, and then we're going to go to New Jersey Energy. That's the big case, if they're here by then.
The first page,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jacobson,
Well, I
They're
know, I
carryover.
know all about them. We're going to hear those cases after New Jersey Energy, Jacobs and Ali. Those cases will be heard after New Jersey Energy, and New Jersey Energy will be limited tonight to an hour and a half. If we didn't do that, they would take up the whole rest of the evening. So they're going
counsel, Mr. Chairman, the counsel for the objectors is not going to be here this evening. And in an email today, there was agreement between counsel that the applicant would bring back the 2 experts that he plans to put on tonight, so that Mr. Simon would have the opportunity to cross-examine them the next time New Jersey Energy is listed.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll see if New Jersey Energy is here after the Harrell case. If not, we'll move to Jacobs and potentially even Ali, which is also a carryover case. That leaves Beck, unfortunately, it's going to be a late night. Okay. I trust you have a babysitter if you need one. Okay. So let's begin with,
The minutes and the resolution.
yes, with the agenda items. We'll go to the minutes first. We have 2 sets of minutes tonight, November the 4th and November the 18th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as they were distributed by the secretary to the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion. And remember, you can only make a motion, second a motion, and vote if you were here that night. How many were here? Everyone was here on the night of the 4th and the 18th both? Okay. So motion on November the 4th minutes to approve. Is there a motion?
Move approval of the minutes of November 4th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of November 4 are approved. Next are the minutes of November 18th. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not,
I sent correction.
Yes, you sent correction.
Just a little addition, very minor.
have those corrections been made, Eileen?
I thought you sent them on the fourth.
Was it the 8th? I thought it was, well, I don't remember, it was at page 15.
I don't remember which one it was.
15 on November 4th, which I just changed the wording of, the proposed conversion resulting in decrease to required parking.
Spaces.
The proposed conversion resulting in decrease to required, to the number of required parking spaces.
Okay, so that was on the minutes of the 4th.
Fourth, correct.
All right, now the minutes of November 18th. Any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of November 18th are also accepted. We're going to move to memorializations now. There are three. The first one is calendar 3721-19, Sebastian Cupo. Who's eligible to vote on these, on that one?
All the full members are.
All the regular members? Are there any additions or corrections to the draft of Cupo? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve calendar 3721-19.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mary McNabb,
Yes.
Frank Putnam,
Yes.
Jody Sharma.
Yes.
Joyce Siegel.
Yes.
Steve Toger.
Yes.
Jessica Glad.
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. Calendar 3727-19. Were there any additions or corrections to that set?
I believe I made all the corrections that were provided to me by the subcommittee.
Any additional corrections or additions? If not, is there a motion on Cupo, on Gulati, which is calendar 3727-19?
Move approval of calendar 3727-19.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary McNabb,
Yes.
Frank Putnam,
Yes.
Jody Sharma.
Yes.
Joyce Siegel.
Yes.
Steve Toger.
Yes.
Jessica Glad.
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. Now, the calendar 3722-19 was a denial. All regular members were here on that one as well?
And all of them are eligible to vote. Remember, a yes vote is on the denial.
Any additions or corrections to that memorialization? If not, is there a motion to approve the memorialization in calendar 3722-19?
Move approval calendar 3722.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary McNabb,
Yes.
Frank Putnam.
Yes.
Jody Sharma.
Yes.
Joyce Siegel.
Yes.
Steve Toger.
Yes.
Jessica Glad.
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. I'm going to call the first case now. I'll call it again. Schneider? There's no response. Itai Harel. I think both of you testified at the last hearing, did you not?
We did,
You're still under oath. You understand that?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Daniel Dubonnet? Dubinett?
And the first name is Danielle, with an A at the end.
Danial.
My mother.
It's your mother's fault by now.
And the applicant?
Itai, E-T-A-I. Last name is Harel, H-A-R-E-L.
Hi, good evening. So we were previously before you seeking two variances to allow a pool on a corner lot and a front yard that's not allowed in the front yard. So we, after hearing the comments and taking into consideration, we decided to, and we revised it, eliminate the need for a front yard fence, and we put it in a compliant place, so there's no longer a need for a variance for fence in the front yard. We actually have pulled it back. I'll show you. This is the same survey you have, just with some color. I could mark it as, I think we're up to A3.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
And this is the plan that's revised through December 2nd.
Yes, same thing as you have, just with some color on it. And again, this red area that kind of looks like a knife is the allowable place for an accessory use. So pool is allowed as long as it can fit into this 11-foot wide shape in the back. So we're seeking No longer the front yard fence. We've pulled it back. We've actually pulled it back to the edge of the, not the front corner, but this back corner here. We did another small adjustment to the plan based on the neighbors' comments and considerations. We pulled the pool a little closer to the house. So the variance previously was 71.25 feet from the property line. Now we're at 72.61. So we got 1.36 feet further from the front property line, but also farther from the adjacent lot this way. So we're 24 feet away from the neighbor's adjacent side. Again, heavily mature, well, they're not even mature yet, they're recently planted, but 12-foot tall, combination of arborvitaes and Norway spruces, giant arborvitaes and Norway spruces. So really from Clive Hills or from Lancer, there's these really tall trees that aren't even mature yet, so they're just planted and they're at 12 feet tall. So it's very hard to see what's going on. So I believe that there were some comments about making sure that there was no spillage over into like the front yard from the pool. I think that was a great comment, and so we pushed the fence back to try and limit whatever activity would happen back here. Again, on a corner lot, you don't have a rear yard. You have two fronts and two sides, so we don't have the opportunity to put it in the rear yard. And in this round on the survey, I incorporated the first floor plan just to give you a sense of how the first floor lays out, because it was our intention when we designed the home, because there is no rear yard, that we would use this side yard as our rear yard. So all the interior rooms focus out there, and if you had the opportunity inside, you'd see like you wouldn't really realize that that's the side yard, and especially with those mature trees. So it's a nice place for the pool. It's the only place for the pool. And again, if it was 11 feet wide, pool would be allowed, but we're asking for 18. So the variance is 7.4 feet for the accessory structure or setback from Clive Hills.
Okay, so let me just clarify. The blue highlighting shown on that plan is the allowable pool.
Yes.
What you need variance for is to the left of the blue highlighted area, which on our plan is like a little bit shaded. It's
A little
dotted.
hatch, yes.
And that covers the pool and a portion of the patio.
Yes.
And the setback for both of those will be 72.6 feet, whereas before it was 71.25 feet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Was the pool like 18 by 40?
No, a little smaller,
18 by
18 by
36.
34?
18 by 36, I think.
Yeah. So
I have 34, apologies.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions of this witness? Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions for this witness? Is there anyone in the audience who has a comment he or she would like to make with respect to this application? I'll close the public portion of the meeting, having heard none. Board members, what are you thinking?
I think that it's much better, and I think it makes sense with the moves that were made, the relocation of the fence and the pool. I could support it.
Any other comments? Is there a motion on this case to approve or deny?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Mary McNabb,
Yes.
Mike Fender,
Yes.
Jody Shaw,
Yes.
Joy Siegel,
Yes.
Steve Hilbert,
Yes.
Jessica Black, Matthew Sundberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project. All right, I will now call to see if the folks have arrived yet for New Jersey Energy. Have you? I don't see anyone here.
Harold Maltz is here, but the applicant's not here, nor is their attorney.
Hi, there he is back there. All right, we're going to go then and go back to the first page of your agenda. And we'll take the Jacobs case next.
Eileen, is notice in order? Okay. Thomas Singer was previously sworn, Mr. Fishman. He is the architect, Thomas
You
Singer.
understand you're still under oath?
I'm still under oath, yes.
And
Richard
Richard
Jacobs,
Jacobs
yes.
was also previously sworn.
You understand you're still under oath, Mr. Jacobs?
So we're responding, this is the second application, 9 Rodway Road. During the last meeting, there were a couple of questions that the board had. One was whether this building could be pulled into the footprint of the existing building to a greater extent. The other was what the square footage of other houses on the street were. The first question we addressed. The second question we tried to, but you really need zoning numbers to make a fair comparison. We did use real estate numbers. It got us to the 5th largest on the block, but it's hard to say how those were calculated. So I wouldn't depend on that. We do know we were smaller than 13 Rahway Road, which was recently varianced here. What we've done is, this was a 2-story addition in the back. We reduced it to a 1-story addition. It was 15.5 feet deep. It's now 12 feet deep. It was 17 feet wide, and it's now 18 feet wide. It got wider because one of the things we're trying to do is meet ADA clearances. So it's a little wider. The deck got narrower, so now it's 11.6 feet from the property line. 12 is required. That's roughly a 75% reduction on the side yard variance. The lot coverage attributable to the 1-story was reduced by about 1/3 in order to resolve the issues on the second floor, which was adding the bathroom to the master bedroom. We're proposing a dormer on the front of the house. Having done that, we started with 3 variances. Building coverage, accessory side yard, and gross floor area. This, while it's minimal in terms of its appearance, so this piece here, it does generate 2 additional variances. One is the front yard setback, and the reason that we need the front yard setback is because it's 40 feet is required. This is at a little over 32. However, it's 1 foot further back than the existing front setback, and the existing front setback is beyond the average on the street. So this is right. So the front setback is 7'3", which
But that's the deviation?
that's the deviation from 40. 31.3 is the average, and this is back 32.7. The other is the combined side yard in the front, and while we're set back from the side here, because we're calculating it from the far edge to this edge, that's generating a 1.1 foot side yard variance. So unfortunately, we went from 1 to 5 variances, but the extent is much smaller.
So the combined side yard setback it goes to 32.8%.
Yes. 16.4 feet instead of 17.5 feet.
I have a question. When you talk about the average setback on the street, what are you talking about? Average of what?
Average setback 500 feet in either direction of the house or to a corner. So it's this. The average setback of all those houses.
But you wanna once again list what your variances are?
Okay, so it's 606.2E2D, which is floor area ratio. Accessory side yard setback,
And
which,
indicate the amounts as well.
okay, and that is 44.42%, down from 48.2%. 36 is the standard. The extent of the variance is 8.42%, down from 12.2. Accessory side yard, 606.2E, 3A. Existing was 8.2 feet. and-
8.6.
8.6 feet, and the proposed is 11.1, variance of 0.9 feet.
That's an improvement over what was originally proposed, which was 8.2 feet.
Which, yes, or 3.8 feet of variance. Building coverage, 606.2E, 2A. The proposed is 24.8. The code maximum is 23. That's a 1.8% difference. That's equals 90 feet. And previously, we were asking for 2.65.
You were at what?
Previously, we were asking for 2.65. Side yard combined is new. 17.5 feet or 35% is required. The previous was, the existing house is 14.8%. The extent of the variance on this piece of dormer is 1.1 feet or 16.4 feet.
Or what?
That's for this little piece of,
Oh, dormer.
yeah, and that's 1.1 feet into the combined side yard.
But the combined side yard setback of the existing house is a pre-existing non-conforming 29.6%. That's not changing.
Right, that's not
So
changing.
you're giving us the combined side yard setback just measured at the point of the addition.
Right, from the opposite side of the house to the addition.
Right.
Which is how we measure side yard combined. The front setback, the average for the street is 31.3, the code minimum is 40, and the addition we're proposing is 32.7, which is 7.3 feet from 40. But it's set back further than everything else on the block.
Can I ask a question? Is your measurement for front setback to the face of the house, face of the dormer, or the face of the portico?
The measurement for all these houses is to the face of the foundation.
Not the portico?
Unless there's a portico that's beyond the permitted portico in the front yard, in which case it would be to the face of the portico.
But yours is not beyond the permitted?
It's not, yes, it's a conforming portico.
How many properties were included in that 500 feet,
Oh, gosh.
roughly?
$14.
14?
Yeah,
And the average was?
31.3. these are 50-foot lots, so.
Any other questions from board members? Anyone in the audience have any questions? Just questions now. Anyone in the audience have any comments with respect to the application? Close the public portion of the meeting. Board members, what are your thoughts?
Better.
I think the dormer is a good answer to the issues that we have with the initial application. And the other adjustments, I think, have been made in a way that that I can support the application.
I agree with Mary. I think it's, even though there's more variances, it's just much subtler, and if I'm looking at, comparing the before and the now, it just seems like it fits so much better on the site.
I'm impressed with the fact that this proposed residence after the addition would still be further back than the average. Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
I second.
Mary McKenna?
Yes.
Peg Parker?
Yes.
Judy Sharma?
Yes.
Joyce Hill?
Yeah.
Steve Putler?
Yes.
Jessica Clark?
Yes.
David Johnson?
Yes,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Is New Jersey Energy ready yet? Apparently not. So we'll proceed to,
Council's here. Are you still waiting for one of your experts?
Just one more expert.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
What about Schneider?
they're not here. Well, is Mr. and Mrs. Schneider here?
Have you heard from them at all? So, one alternative would be to dismiss for lack of prosecution.
Is there a motion to dismiss for lack of prosecution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That case is dismissed for lack of prosecution. So we're now to the Ahmed Ali case. There are going to be two witnesses here?
I'm Ahmed Ali.
Pardon me?
I'm Ahmed Ali.
Are you going to be speaking at all?
No, just can you
No?
stand up?
Okay.
Mr. Ali, you were previously sworn anyway, I believe.
Yes.
As was Mr. Bennett? You were previously sworn too. So, Mr. Fishman, it is the applicant, Ahmed Ali, previously sworn, and the Lawrence Bennett, Lawrence Bennett, Bennett. Mr. Bennett, I believe you appeared as a designer, correct?
Correct. If I may, hand these out, this is a revised application.
Just hand them to your expert.
Sure.
Put today's date on the top of one of them,
And it's A9.
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 And hand that one to our secretary. Today's date is the 16th, 12/16.
Thank you. Good evening.
Wait a minute, you have enough to pass out to everybody?
Oh, okay.
But
Yes.
let's hold on. so everyone has a copy in front. Thank you. This is A8,
A9.
A9.
Sure.
All right, what do you want the board members to focus on with this new exhibit? Or are you going to focus on something else first?
No, this refers to the summary of the variances requested. Okay? We have tried to,
Was that previously marked? Or is
Yes.
this new?
oh no, this is a new one.
So that has to be marked as A10. And, you're going to have to tell me what it is. It's a
This is a
copy
co-
of,
This is a copy of the geodetic survey obtained from the building department, and a copy of the,
okay, so
I'm sorry, what?
it's the tax map,
Correct.
and superimposed is,
This is a blow-up of the tax map with the contours and the properties, the buildings cited. Again, from the building department. And I used property cards from the tax assessor's office to obtain the floor area ratios for some of the properties. I got 17 out of the 20 of the people that were notified.
Proceed.
Okay. The first thing that I wanted to demonstrate was, based on our previous conversations, this is the site in question, it's 8,400 square feet. And the fact of the matter is that everything that you see in orange in this area is at or over 8,400 square feet. Okay? As far as the floor area ratio is concerned, we're at floor area ratio, we're at 37%, whereas the required is 36, so we think it's minimus. But the fact of the matter is, this property is 48, 38, 40, 47, 47, 50%, 34%, 39%. So it's not as if we're out of the norm in this particular area. The other thing I wanted to demonstrate was the front yard setback. The front yard setback is required to be 40 feet. Virtually none of the properties are at 40 feet, and most of these are pre-existing non-conforming. What's required is 40 feet. What's existing is 29.8, and we're asking for 24.8. In the area, again, all the houses in yellow that you see have a front yard setback less than what we're asking for. You have 21, 22, 24, 21, 24, 18, 20, all the yellows are less front setback than the 24.8 that we are requesting. As far as the side yard setbacks, the requirement is 7, and we're looking to do 8. Actually,
the requirement is 8.
I'm sorry, I got it backwards. And we are only 7, but that is really an pre-existing non-conforming that we're just extending with a wall to create a courtyard. As far as the combined, the maximum allowed is 35%, which is 24.5 feet, and we're at 22.8, which which is 16 feet. And again, just to show that we're trying to maintain the character of the neighborhood and gel with everything else in the area. Is this one? The combined side yard setbacks here are in red. See 16 feet, 16 feet, 14 feet, 20, 18, 11, 20, 20. It seems to be a pretty, most of the houses are non-conforming, in particular immediately surrounding our area. This is the existing structure.
Has that been marked yet?
I think it was, wasn't it?
Say 7?
Yes, A7.
All right, this is the existing home. And when you look at the neighborhood, I forget which one it is. Exhibit.
I believe that's A3.
A3, okay, showing there's many tutors in the neighborhood. Is it A4?
Yes.
Okay. And so, this is what we started with. And this is what we're proposing. Showing you this to demonstrate that we're trying to keep the character of the neighborhood.
That there is A8, which was a photo rendering of the proposed home, previously marked as A8.
And we brought this, we had an artist rendering of it to show that it is in keeping with the neighborhood, both in scope, style, and architectural integrity. I think I covered everything. As far as the side yard setback, I think it is, again, it is minimus being 1 foot, as well as the floor area ratio being 1%. And the combined, although it's 16 feet versus 24.5, again, it is in keeping with the immediate area. Any questions?
I have a question. In the elevation of the, on the sheet that you just handed out, it appears to be like a large turret. I don't know if it's hexagonal or octagonal. It doesn't appear in the rendering. Is that?
Well, that's because it's in the back of the building,
I think you still see
and
it
it's shut
where
from
that
the
tree
side,
is.
but what you're
Phil needs you to speak up.
inquiring about is this.
Okay. And that's still there.
Yes.
I think you would see in the rendering, but okay.
And it is in the back.
So is the tree that you see.
Could you go back to your map, the original, oh, you finished? Sorry.
No, it was just a
Okay.
question.
Could you go back to your original map that you drew up where you show you cite
The
property
site
size
plan?
and so forth? So just going back to this a minute, the orange properties you're saying are of equal size, about 8,400 square feet or more, is that what you're saying there?
All of these are 8,400 square feet. All the other ones in orange are above 8,400. This particular one is 13,285. I wrote that one down
Right.
because it was irregular.
So of these ones that are, let's call it 25% above the zone requirement of 6,000 feet, how many are, you said calculated are a violation of FAR?
How many are in violation of FAR?
Right.
I only checked a certain amount of them.
Not those, because those lots are not 8,400 square feet.
Right.
How many of the larger lots do you calculate the homes are above FAR?
Well, this one is at 39%. The one directly on the left side of the of our property, we couldn't get the FAR, but we're pretty sure that it is over. If you just look at it, we couldn't get a set of the plans. So as far as
That's the only
The
one
only
that's
one?
larger?
Of the larger properties, this is the one with the 39% FAR.
And you're basing that off your tax map, or tax
Correct.
record?
Tax map and the assessor's, the property
Right,
cards.
card.
I have a question. In the drawing that's superimposed over the tax map with the contours, your property is the one that's colored in orange, right?
The property in question, ours is.
Right,
this is-
okay.
Yes,
Is that the footprint that's existing or the footprint that's proposed?
no, that's existing.
Okay.
I wanted to keep it to the existing conditions, but the fact of the matter is this, what we're asking for is 37%.
Any other questions from board members?
I have a question for Eileen. Will you swear Eileen in, Phil, please?
Raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, no matter how pending.
Yes.
The last time we were here, I thought there was a discussion about side yard over 18 feet, that 14.5 feet is required, and 9 feet was proposed.
I think the problem last time is that he was focusing on the right side, I mean, on the left side, which was conforming with the right side, which was non-conforming with both sides.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is because A9, the package we just got today is A9, shows that the side yard setback for building segments over 18 feet in height, it did not check off that that is not conforming, but it appears that it's not conforming based on the numbers in those columns.
But the entire thing is 7 feet. The entire thing is 7 feet off the property line. So it's greater than. I cited him for the side yard setback, which was, the requirement was 8 feet, proposed was 7 feet, that's what I cited him for. I don't believe it was, I think it was just the wall portion that comes off of.
Okay, so the side yard setback for building segments over 18 feet in height does not require variance relief.
Do you have a full size of this, because I just have this, and I can,
Yes,
there it is.
right here. That, that's an existing,
That's existing,
an existing, a pre-existing non-conforming.
I understand what I'm asking.
This is the front of the house from the right side here. We have 7 feet, and this is the elevation of the right side.
Okay, while you're holding that, Eileen, I'm talking about the left side,
The left side is,
9 feet. And I believe the additional side yard segment over 18 feet is supposed to be 14.5 feet. And my notes from last time indicated on the left side, 14.5 was required, 9 was proposed. And my note just said was no deficient notice, one,
right, because everything that I have from them is very, I'm just trying to look at their legal list. Because that was the issue last time, was the deficient notice. And they
Correct.
started their, this is your proposal here, correct?
Yes.
Your garage, and
The garage is the left
yeah,
side.
because the way that the,
But then this would be closer.
so that, the turret, that portion, is that all brand new?
Yes.
That's all new.
right, that's where I think the 9 foot comes in.
Right, the garage that's proposed and that is all at 9 feet. Where does 18 feet hit that? Where does the 18 feet hit on that left side,
The height
in the height?
to the fascia.
Right,
on
and
the
that
turret.
got them to the 18 foot and the additional, so by the time they got over, they were okay on that.
Okay, so we do not
You do
need
not need it on the left
variance
side,
for
correct.
that,
The left
okay.
side was fine, it's the right side is that, is all.
And the only construction on the right side is this wall.
Correct.
And if we could even reduce it in height to be more like a,
No, it was the,
That's-
my question related to the left side, so.
Okay.
We're good with that.
In your opinion, do you think that wall affects negatively the next door neighbor?
oh, not at all.
Why is that?
Well, because right now it's like a little nook. This is actually where the front door is. Right? And this establishes better channelization, and it gives the front elevation a better appeal by swooping down the roof. And this is a short door here, and this could be dropped even further. But otherwise, you're left with this dark corner.
Is that lot exactly 8,400 square feet? Because-
Excuse me?
Is that lot exactly 8,400 square
Correct.
feet? Because I'm not, your numbers aren't adding up. If you look at your current floor area ratio, if it's 25%, it would be 2,100 feet. And you're showing 2,089.
I'm sorry, say that again?
If your lot is 8,400 square feet,
Right.
okay, and your current floor area ratio is 25%,
Right.
that's 2,100.
Correct.
You're showing 2,089. Same goes for your proposed. You'd be at 3,108, not 3,118.
That's .248. I guess I rounded it off to 25%.
Oh, I see, you rounded it. It's just, you're tight, so rounding probably isn't the best way to go, but
Well, on the other hand, the 37 is 37.3711.
so what is it though? Is 3118 the actual space you need, or are you basing it off of 37% of?
No, the 31 square feet is off of measuring the entire house.
So the 3118 is, okay, the 3118 is what you actually need.
Correct. Yeah, I have the ratios based on the actual square footage.
Okay, you just rounded them, I see, okay.
Any other questions from board members? Anyone in the audience have any questions of this witness? Just questions. Anyone in the audience have a comment on this case? I hear none, I see none. Close the public portion of the meeting. Let me just make a comment for myself. I don't know what the justification is by the fact that the applicants moved in to this property, and then when they got in, realized that it was not truly a tutor to their liking or to the standard of tutors, and that's not a justification for granting variances. So I have a real problem with this case. I have had from the beginning.
Your FAR is 98 square feet. I find it hard to believe you can't find 98 square feet to trim off this project.
I'm sure we could.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm sure we could.
Well, this is the time to do it. Remember that a floor area ratio requires 5 affirmative votes out of 7 members.
Okay.
If you need some time, I'd be happy to give it to you. You can go in the back room with your client and try to work it out. Unfortunately, the next case is going to be an hour-and-a-half case, so.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that if we move the garage back, I'll be 5 feet. We could move the garage back into the family room. I guess you're looking at 118, correct?
Sorry,
118 square feet?
it's 98 square feet,
98.
give or take, so you wouldn't want to
We could get it down to 36%.
stay conforming then.
Right.
You're withdrawing the variance request for
Floor area ratio.
floor area ratio?
Yeah? Well, I think if we take a vote and are denied, then can we just eliminate the overage?
No, our attorney will explain that to you.
Well, we could vote on the FAR, and if you deny the FAR, then you can vote separately on the remainder.
Yes, but that's not what he's asking.
No, I'm asking, yeah, if we proceed with the vote based on everything, the side yard, combined side yard.
We wouldn't
front yard.
vote on everything all at one time, because if we do that, you're gonna get, you may get a negative vote. We're only gonna vote, we're gonna
First.
vote first on the FAR, which is the only variance that needs 5 affirmative votes. So you'll either get 5 people that agree that you're entitled to it, or you're not gonna garner 5 votes, in which case the floor area ratio variance will fail.
Right.
Then the board will go on and consider the other.
Your question was, what happens to me if I fail?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, if you fail on the floor area ratio, but the board approves the remaining variances, they're going to do so subject to a condition that you submit revised plans that depict a conforming floor area ratio.
I think that would be fine.
But
So
what
you
if he fails on all?
then he fails on all.
Well, then you tell him what he has to do if he fails.
If you fail on all, if the board is not inclined to grant all of these variances, put aside the floor area ratio. Let's say you get a denial on the floor area ratio because you don't garner 5 affirmative votes. And then the board votes on the remaining 4 variances that you need. And you don't have 4 votes. You don't have 4 out of 7. Then that is also gonna be a denial of the remaining variances. And that would mean that you would have to come, in order to come back with a new application, it would have to be substantially different from what you're showing here.
Correct.
Because otherwise, there is this doctrine in the law called res judicata, which means the matter's already been decided. So you would have to come back with a new application that the board would decide is substantially different enough from the current application that they would be willing to hear that as a new matter, as opposed to making a determination that they already decided this case and they're not gonna reopen it and look at the same thing again.
Okay, so if we proceed and we fail on the FAR, but everything else is approved, then all we have to do is reduce the floor area ratio to where it should be.
That's correct.
But do you take this one step further and break out the remainder as ones that are currently non-conforming to the ones that are being requested? So your accessory structure, side yard, and minimums accessory are the
He
same?
doesn't need those variances.
No, oh, he's out, okay,
Those are pre-existing non-conforming conditions.
fine,
He needs 5 variances.
right.
Front yard, side yard, combined side yard, floor area ratio. Did I count that wrong?
Yeah, it's 4.
One?
It's 4.
Oh, 4. 4 variances. He needs 4 variances. He needs floor area ratio and 3 others.
Correct.
Do we need to vote on the 3 others at the same time, or can we separate those
Well,
as
that's
well?
entirely up to you. But I mean, at some point, if you start separating all of these, what's the point of granting him a variance? Because he's gonna I don't know what you're gonna end up getting in the end, you know,
Right.
if he has to revise the plans to provide a conforming floor area ratio and a conforming side yard setback. I don't know what you're gonna end up seeing.
It might look totally different than.
It might be totally different than what they're proposing.
Well,
And,
if
and then you might decide, you know,
If
the
it's
look of
on-
it is not consistent with the neighborhood, in which case perhaps you would have denied, you know, it as not complying with the negative criteria.
If it's only the FAR, my inclination is to take the garage and push it back 5-point-something feet to gain back the 118 square feet. So in effect, it will not change the appearance, nor this front, side, or combined variances.
Seems like they want us to vote.
What I read.
Is that okay?
All right, we're gonna proceed to a vote then. Is there a motion to approve or deny the floor area ratio variance?
Motion to deny floor area ratio is proposed.
Second.
A yes vote is a vote to deny.
Correct.
Yes on the motion.
Craig Plattner?
Yes.
Jody Sharma?
Yes.
Joy Siegel?
Yeah.
Steve Toler?
Yes.
Jessica Black?
Yes.
Joseph Frank?
Yes.
Okay, so the board has denied your request for floor area ratio.
Understood?
You wanna proceed to a vote now on the other 3?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to approve or deny the other 3 variances?
I'll move to approve the other 3.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mary McNabb?
Yes.
Craig Plattner?
No.
Jody Sharma?
Yes.
Joy Siegel?
No.
Steve Toler?
No.
Jessica Black?
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg?
No.
The result is 4 opposed. That means the remaining variances are denied.
Okay?
Thank you.
Is New Jersey Energy ready to proceed? Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break now.
Actually, if I may, Board Chairman, real quick, I've spoken to the applicant's attorney for the other
Well,
application.
the shorthand reporter is not here. Hold it.
No, go ahead, Phil.
Go ahead.
Just wait a minute, okay,
Okay,
Matt?
yeah, sure.
Now, as I've said many times before, I'm not on the record now, but if you are interested in any case as a neighbor, an objector, you should feel free always to come down front. Otherwise, you may not hear what's going on, you may not see the exhibits. So we have plenty of room on the first row here, on both sides. Come on down front so you can participate without feeling that you're shut out. Eileen, who was the traffic expert last year that we identified for this case? Yeah. He was in West Orange, I know that. Right. You gotta do that. Okay. Yeah.
I think he's gonna let Beck go before him. I think that's what he's saying. He talked to the
okay.
attorney for Beck.
Okay.
I think.
Is Beck the only other one?
Right, Beck's the only other one.
Because
Yeah.
Green isn't, or, yeah. I mean, that would make the most sense.
Thank you.
Come forward, counsel. Let's hear your name again, please.
Matthew Posada of Skank Price, represent NJ. Sure.
This is the Thursday one.
All right.
Well, it may not.
Sure. Matthew, Mathew, Posada, P as in Peter, Osada. A-D-A, A as in apple, D as in David, A as in apple, yeah. Good evening, all. I have spoken to the applicant's attorney for the other residential application, and if it's acceptable by this board, they may go first, as I know that our hearing will take longer than their subject application, so as a courtesy.
It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is gonna be Beck, calendar 3733-19 at 9 Beechcroft Road.
No,
It's on the second,
East Beach.
East Beechcroft. It's on the second page, Phil.
It's a hard name to spell. Good evening. For the record, Lisa John Basta with the law firm Keyes, Shahinian, and Jan Tomasi on behalf of the applicants, Matthew and Rachel Beck. As stated, we're here this evening for an addition to property, existing single-family residential home located at 9 East Beechcroft Road. In connection with our application, the applicant is seeking 3 variances, one for front yard, one for maximum building coverage, and one for floor area ratio. To discuss the application in greater detail tonight, we intend to call 2 witnesses, Meredith Colon, who's our architect, and Rich Keller, who is our professional planner.
Let me have your name again, please.
Lisa John Basta.
Do I understand that you have a certain position with a publishing company?
I do, that's correct.
She's the
Yeah, I know.
You know, if
Sure.
Yeah. Hello.
you swear her in.
I do.
And will you have your full name spelled, please?
Sure, it's Meredith Ryman. Sure.
Spell it, please.
Meredith is Meredith. Last name is colon, it's hyphenated, COLON hyphen, sorry, there's more, REIMAN. I'm the architect.
Meredith, have you previously testified before this board?
I have.
I don't know if you remember Meredith, or would you like me to go?
We need her on the record to be qualified.
Can you briefly state your professional and educational background for the board?
Sure, I'm a licensed architect. I'm licensed.
Slower. We have
Slow
to
down.
slower.
Let me just say this loud so everybody understands. Mr. Fishman would like everybody to speak up and to speak slowly so he can catch everything, and have one person speak at a time. Thank you.
I'll do my best. I'm from
That
New
means
York.
you, Richard. Speak slowly.
Should I go?
Go ahead.
Okay. And I have laryngitis. I'm not sick. I'm not contagious, but I'll do my best. I'm a licensed architect. I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey. I've appeared before this board several times. What else do you want to know? I've been licensed for maybe 15 years. I've appeared before the Livingston Board, New York City Department of Buildings, Landmarks Preservation Commission.
Education.
I have a master's in architecture. I have a Bachelor of Science in architecture.
Have you been accepted as an expert in architecture in other municipalities within the state of New Jersey before planning boards and zoning boards?
I have.
Your qualifications are accepted.
Thank you.
And your license is current?
It is.
And were you the preparer of the plans, the architectural plans that were submitted to the board in advance of tonight's hearing?
Yes.
If you could, start by discussing the Beck residence and the existing conditions on the lot today.
Okay, sure. I'm just going to go my whole thing. Okay? Thanks. Hello. The Beck residence is an existing Center Hall colonial. The home was constructed in 1937. It's beautifully sited on its lot. The house has undergone many additions over the past 80 years. We're proposing to remove the previously added rear-facing two-car garage with the bedroom above and add back a new side-facing two-car garage with more family space on the first floor, which will allow for a proper-sized dining room, a mudroom, and a small office on the first floor. On the second floor, we're going to try to get their son's bedroom to be at the same level as all the other bedrooms and reconfigure the spaces basically in the same number of rooms, but make them function better, just adding a bathroom and a laundry room. The Beck residence is located in the R4 zone. The lot area is 15,510 square feet, which is significantly undersized for the zone. The typical lot size in R4 is 20,000 square feet. It's an irregularly shaped lot. The lot width on one side is 117 feet on the north side. On the south end, it's 88 feet. Tonight we're seeking 3 variances, one for front yard setback, one for building coverage, which is an existing nonconformity, and one for floor area ratio. These variances are needed because of the irregular shaped lot, the exceptional shallowness of the lot, and how significantly undersized the lot is for the zone, and how the existing house currently sits on the lot. Just going to briefly describe the variances, which you have all in front of you. Sorry again for my voice. Front yard setback currently in R4 required is 40 feet. Existing right now is 42.6 feet, and proposed is 37.7 feet. We're seeking a 4.9-foot variance. Building coverage is 14% required. Existing, which is non-conforming, is 14.3%. And we're proposing 17.6%, which is 3.6% variance. And for floor area ratio, There's 26% required. Already existing is the 25%. And we're proposing 31.3%, which is a 5.3% variance. The proposed project meets all other zoning statistics. So I'm just going to walk you through the plans.
Meredith, before you go into the plans itself, on the lot today, are there some existing nonconformities that we're actually bringing into conformity related to the driveway and to the shed?
I'm not sure if they're considered nonconformities. There are a couple of things in the property right now that I know that the township wants us to correct. Right now, the driveway, let me open it. These are plans you have, nothing is shown right now, things are new. This is the survey that you have. Right now, the existing driveway sits partially on the neighbor's property, which I know the township would like to try to eliminate as much as possible. We're not required to move it, but in an effort to try to, in good faith, and we're trying to clean up all of these sort of oddities, we're proposing to shift the driveway slightly over to eliminate the driveway sitting partially on the neighbor's property. We're doing the same thing with the shed. The Beck's shed right now is sitting halfway between their property and the neighbor's property, and we are proposing to eliminate the shed. We're also getting rid of the shed in an effort to bring our building coverage down. We are over building coverage existing. We are adding to building coverage with our proposal, and so we're trying to bring the coverage down. That is one of the ways we do that. There are other existing nonconformities on the site. I'm not going too fast. The existing house is currently the rear yard, the house as it sits is sitting in the rear yard. So designing any addition on the house, it was just putting it in the rear yard was not an option. We are existing in the rear yard setback. We are, currently the house is in the rear, is over on rear yard unoccupied. So those were, any option to put the addition towards the back was not available to us. So we really had to, when we were designing this, and I'll go through this when we get into the plan, we really had to stay into sort of this chunky part of the property because it was like the only option for us that was, had a little bit of breathing room where we could add on to the house.
Thank you.
Take your time.
Yes, please.
Okay.
That photograph is not part of the record. I don't know if you want it to be, but.
I'm not sure if I do either. I just put
Okay.
it up there, so we'll just leave it if we need it. I think Rich is gonna show a lot of pretty pictures of the house, the property. Give me a second. So, the Becks purchased this house about 1.5 years ago because they were drawn to the Beechcroft neighborhood, which is stunning, and the beautiful property. The home itself has so many lovely features. So a lot of the original trim is still, you can still see it throughout the house. The front foyer is warm and welcoming. The stair is very grand. But unfortunately, the house has been added on to many, many times by previous owners with inadequate architects. There are lots of awkward corridors, misshapen rooms, and floors that don't align. When the Becks came to see me last year, they talked about how they just love the feel of the house, but they wanted the property and they wanted this house, but they knew that it needed. They just felt like with a little bit of love and patience and guidance, we could make the house really wonderful. We had a few areas we really needed to focus on. On the first floor, we wanted to make a real 2-car garage. The current 2-car garage cannot fit 2 cars. There's like a bump out in the back of the garage. I don't know. This is the basement, but you can see on the first floor. You can't actually fit a car on this side, So you really can only fit one car on this side. There's a chimney that's happening there from the basement. So we wanted to get a real two-car garage. You cannot access the garage directly into the house. You have to go outside. Currently, you have to walk outside, up a lot of steps, and then come into the house this way, which is, you know, I know in Short Hills there's lots of detached garages and stuff, but it's not ideal, especially when the house is actually attached to the garage. It's frustrating. And there are lots of, you know, strange things in the house. I mean, if you can look at this room here and this, I mean, it's really weird. They're very difficult to furnish spaces. And that sort of theme happens on upstairs also. I mean, in their son's bedroom, you can't get to his room without walking through a study. You go through a study, and then you have to go down like 4 steps, and then you're in his bedroom. So there's a lot of weird oddities in the house, even though from the outside it looks very pretty and very organized. When you're inside, it's kind of a hot mess. So we decided to work together and see what we could do to create the feel and loveliness of the house and the property, and make it work functionally on the inside. So when you're looking at the house from the outside, it looks very stately. The property is really wide. It's much wider than sort of the standard lot in the R4 zone. It's almost 150 feet in width, and there's a generous amount of breathing room on either side of the home at both side yards. It's only when you look at the site plan, which I'll bring back up just to kind of look at it again, you see that it's extremely shallow. I mean, when you're standing here and looking, it looks really bricked up. I think I'm gonna use it. Right. So
A1?
A1, okay.
You can write on the back
Right on the back? Okay.
Yeah.
with today's date, please.
Which is?
16.
16, thank you. It looks really, you know, it's sited really well. It's really sort of grand there, and it has lots of space around it on either side. And you would never know that it's like right up against the property line until you really drive back there. You don't realize that there's like another house right up against it in the back here. So, you know, it just seems like it has lots of space, but it doesn't. It's you know, it's real tight and really shallow, the property, even though it doesn't appear it from the front of the street. Since the current garage and the bedroom over that side, so we're talking about over here, sort of the worst offender of the additions that have been done on this house, and since that's kind of like we talked about before, the thickest and meatiest part of the property, we decided that's what we would remove, and that's where we would put our attention, and that's where we would do the addition, and that's what we focused on. So I think now we'll just kind of walk through the plans. The basement of this house, of the existing house, is very small. There's very little basement. Most of the house is built on crawl space. And then just a little bit of the original portion of the house from the 40s was built with basement. So we're just trying to add a little bit more basement so they have a little bit more storage area and maybe a place for the kids, although honestly it's still pretty small. So we're just, in that little front portion of addition that we're doing, we're gonna put some more full basement. But obviously, we're just gonna do slab for the garage. There's not a lot of space down here that's available to us, which is why I think we ended up kind of growing the house a little bit more than expected upstairs. This is so little space available to us down here. as we talked about before, one of our focuses was first of all, get a real two-car garage where you can actually park two cars, especially American-sized cars, which are quite big. And another thing we really wanted to do, which I didn't focus on so much before, is we wanted to eliminate the rear-facing garage. Rear-facing garages require a lot of lot coverage, because you gotta get all the way around. And we were trying to, again, we knew we were already over on building coverage, and one of our process was that, okay, we can't bring that down, but maybe by bringing down the lot coverage, we can offset that building coverage number a bit by bringing down the lot coverage. So that was one of our thoughts. So rather than keeping the garage facing the back, we cut the driveway and have the cars hanging on the side. We are reducing our lot coverage number. You can look on your zoning charts. I mean, it's not a huge number, but we did get it somewhat down. So now you're coming in through the garage on the side. We do have a little access in the back, and then you're able to come in. We did set that nice mud room in there, which is great use for family. There's lockers and storage for everyone, a walk-in pantry for bulk storage and food storage, and then direct access into the kitchen, which is great. Right now in the kitchen, another oddity, I almost wish you guys could have went in the house and you drive by, but if you went in, you'd really see a lot of what I'm talking about. But in the kitchen, sorry, Matt and Rachel, making fun of your house, it's so mean. There's like this weird closet thing with her washer and dryer like in the middle of the kitchen. It's so awkward. So we're getting rid of that, and we need to find a laundry room space, so we put that upstairs. So we got rid of the laundry closet, which is truly right here in the kitchen right now. We opened it up to the family room, which is nice. Added a small butler's pantry, which can tie the new dining room and kitchen together. The dining room, which right now is like 12 feet by 13 feet, it's really not big enough for more than maybe 8 people to sit. And they host holidays and family gatherings and stuff. It's just not large enough. The dining room, I will tell you, is where we struggled because we have a front yard setback issue. We know that nobody wants to push into the front yard. We know we couldn't go in the rear yard because we're already in the rear yard with the house already. There was really nowhere else to go. So what we thought was sort of the lesser of two evils was if we lined up our dining room with where the house sits right now, which is the front portico. And that was sort of our attempt at not having the house protrude any further into the front yard than the house already does. I understand how front yard setbacks work. I know the porticos are not included in that, but as far as like a human being who walks by the house, it's not going to feel any further forward than the house already sits. And we're just talking about this one room. It is a single-story structure. The office, which is next to it, which we need for Rachel, who works from home once or twice a week, is pulled back. It's just this one room that is forward slightly because it just wasn't going to be big enough if we pulled it back to meet the front yard setback. So we ended up having this nice dining room and then a smaller office for Rachel to be able to work from home. We did a lot of nice improvements on the interior, which this board is not quite super concerned with, but just to try to get rid of this really weird hallway thing that's happening over here, improve the power door, get a little coat closet, utility closet, and make a nice functioning living room on the first floor. So as I talked about before, on the second floor, truly we didn't really add any rooms other than we added one bathroom so that both kids can have their own bathroom. Because right now their son Nate has a bathroom and she doesn't. She has to walk across the hall, so we actually just tried to equalize the bedrooms. But the count is kind of the same other than that one additional bathroom. Originally there was this number of bedrooms and an office. The office was that weird room you had to walk through to get to their son's room. That room you had to walk through, then go down steps to get to their room, or their son's room. We've eliminated that. We've cleaned up the space. We've made it so he is on the same level as his family. So now he's a part of the family. Although their sister, I think Riley liked it when he was downstairs and out of her way, but now they're all on the same floor. The kids all have proper closets. It is very difficult to read in the plans but their closets were all very weird, lots of sloped ceilings, lots of difficulty getting hangers in there. Now everyone can actually put hangers and have real storage in their closets. The kids used to have their bathroom, and we put the laundry room upstairs. It's not huge, it's actually kind of small, but it's better than the laundry closet in the middle of the kitchen. And so we reconfigured things up here to work for the family. On the exterior of the house, I think we developed a really beautiful design that carefully considers basic architectural principles like massing, proportion, and variation in materials in an effort to scale down the mass, which allows the house to be directly proportionate to human scale. The main body of the house has the traditional dominant centerpiece with a large central gable that sits taller than the wings. All we really did was follow the language that was already set up by the existing house and continued this use of interplay of solid and void throughout the design of the addition to help break down the general volume of the house, and again, relate it all back to human proportion and scale. We continue to push and pull and layer. The office is pulled back from the dining room. The second floor is pulled back from the office. Everything is sort of pushing and pulling to try to get some more shadow lines in there and make everything feel a little bit smaller and allow the main body of the house to read as the sort of the central figure and let everything else step down. We got a little playful with the windows on the second floor by making these little square windows, and again, just to sort of make the center feel more important than the wings and make everything just sort of read together. On the garage side, we continue with the layering again. This is hard to read in the straight elevation without any shading, but this portion, as you can see here, is much further back than the garage, so that you get some shadowing here and here, and it just, again, pulls everything back and doesn't make it feel so looming, so that, like from the street, you really see this much before you see this or this or even this. This is what you're seeing close. So some of the reasons why we feel that, which support the petitioner's claim of the right of relief are as follows. The 2C1 variances are caused by the hardship of the irregular shaped lot, the undersized lot, the excessive shallowness, I'll slow down, I'm sorry, of the lot, and by the design of the current house which legally exists on the lot. Due to the shallowness of the property of the existing house, due to the existing shallowness of the property, the existing house is non-conforming. Are you interrupting me?
No, I think we're going to align that Rich is going to cover as far as the variance proofs, but from an architectural standpoint,
Yeah.
do you feel that it's architecturally appropriate for the neighborhood and the surrounding community?
Oh, I absolutely do, yes.
And you believe that from a massing standpoint that there is no sort of detriment by exceeding the maximum floor areas or maximum building coverage from that is what's required from the building code? From the zoning code?
Yes. Is that the right answer? Yes.
Well, no, from an architectural standpoint,
Yes,
you believe that this is visually pleasing to the environment?
I do,
and,
I do.
And is in character, in line, even though we're going over
Yes.
the maximums, we're still in line with the neighborhood?
Yes, especially since from the street and the way that house sits on the property, it looks like the property is 20,000+ square feet, and it doesn't read to anyone how shallow the property. You would never know. I mean, it's all, these codes are set up so that these houses are not looming and don't feel overwhelming on their property, right? So that, I mean, the house across the street, the Wexman's house, the house across the street is almost twice as big as this house, directly across the street, but it doesn't feel it because it's on a big piece of property. This house doesn't seem like the property is a quarter of the size. It doesn't read that at all because the frontage is almost as big as their frontage. It's just that their property goes back so much further. You can't read it. And so this code is set up so that you don't you're not putting this huge house on this very small, something visually that looks very small. It's never going to look that way.
Right, from a design standpoint, you did do the step backs from the first floor is the one that pushes out the most.
Right.
And then it goes back so that the scale of the building seems less looming.
Correct.
And then also the addition is being added to, if you're facing the house, on the right side of the house. And while we're adding an addition to the right side of the house, we're still in conformance with the side yard setback requirements?
Yes.
And we exceed the minimum standards, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
Okay, great.
Our
Might have
board
questions.
members have
Oh, sorry.
questions of this witness? I have just one. You're not suggesting, are you, that the two items that you mentioned at the beginning, the driveway encroaching on the neighbor and the same with
The shed.
that those couldn't be remedied without the variances?
Oh, no, not at all. I'm just saying
Oh.
we're just doing it just because we're trying to be nice.
Right.
No, they are not, there's no variance needed. That's what I said in the beginning. It's not required. It's just something we're doing.
Any other questions from board members? Anyone in the audience have questions for this witness? Next witness.
Our next witness is Richard Keller of Casey and Keller.
Swear the witness.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, and nothing else.
Yes, I do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Your full name, sir.
Richard Keller, Keller.
Do we need to go through Mr. Keller's
He'll
qualifications?
go through his routine.
Yes, I am a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been licensed as both for more than 30 years. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University with a concentration in water resources and environmental engineering. I also hold a master's degree in architecture, and that is from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and that is a concentration in urban planning and design, and that is an institution that I taught at for approximately 11 years, both graduate and undergraduate. I've appeared before approximately 110 boards throughout the state of New Jersey as both planner and engineer, and my licenses are in good effect.
And you've appeared before this board in both capacities, is that correct?
For the last 30 years, yes, sir.
His qualifications as both an engineer and a planner are accepted by
Thank
this
you.
board.
Certainly. Yes, sir. The I'm gonna do a handout. So this will be A2, I believe. Is that correct?
Whoops, I may have another one.
Do we know? Do we know?
Yeah, I think we can.
Do it? Yeah, I do.
Mr. Keller, A2 consists of photo board number 1 and aerial photo, correct?
That is correct. The property itself is 9 East Beechcroft Road. It's in the Beechcroft section of the community of Short Hills. It is block 2803, lot 2, and it is located wholly within the R4 residential zone, as are all of the Beechcroft roads. The property, as was indicated, is an undersized lot, 15,510 square feet,
where 20,000 square feet is required in the R4 zone. So our property is approximately 22.5% smaller than that required within the zone. It's also the smallest lot within the block, and actually what I'm gonna do is, I guess I'm gonna go to the second half of A2 first. The aerial photo as some reference for the neighborhood. The aerial photo is a combination of an orthorectified aerial photograph. It's taken from nearmap.com. It's been reproduced at a scale of 1 inch equals 30 feet. We superimpose the tax map lots over the top of that, along with some tax information. We found, especially in these irregular lots, such as the Beechcrofts, tax information from the tax assessor is hugely unreliable, both in terms of the square footage of the building, because you never really know whether there's any in the attic, as well as other portions that were missing on the in the itemized square footages. But where you're especially wrong is in the lot areas, because they're difficult to calculate. We actually, all of the lot areas shown on that diagram are properties that we surveyed. So we had the actual lot areas with the exception of the subject property and one other or two others which we took off the digital copies of the township tax maps, which are much more accurate than the information available to the tax assessor. So on this drawing that you have before you, we've indicated both the lot numbers and we've indicated roughly some of the coverage. But you'll see that the property in question, labeled PQ at the center of the drawing, is located on the west side of East Beechcroft. It is a rather wide lot at just a little over 148, approximately 148.5, nearly 150 feet wide. It is shallow, with only 105 feet on the left side. I'm sorry, 88.3 feet on the left side. 88.3. The right side being 117 feet, and this is in a zone that requires 150 feet of lot depth. Our lot depth as ordinance from the midpoint to the front is 105.8 feet, again where 150 feet is required, so we are 29.5% less than that required by ordinance. Our lot width, as indicated, was 148.4 feet, where 100 feet is required. So we're actually 48.4% wider than that required. In fact, the R3 zone, which is our 29,000 square foot zone, requires only 115 feet. So these lots, especially in this block, in this area, are much wider than you would anticipate in much of the R4 zone, but they're also much shallower. In fact, our lot is the smallest on the block at the 15,510 square feet. You can see that the lot behind us is 16,953. The corner lot to the south or the left of the property in question is 16,905. The property to the right, 18,104. Coming to the intersection, lot 4, which is actually 15 East Beechcroft. That is 19,980. So now we're getting close to the 20,000 square foot requirement. And the last two lots, lot 5 and lot 6, actually exceed the 20,000 square foot requirement. It is an eclectic neighborhood. Directly across East Beechcroft, the corner property at 30 West Beechcroft is only a lot area 13,706. That's the smallest on that block. And we also tried to show some of the lot coverages through building coverage. And those are building coverage that we had since we did the surveys on these. And just to show that on our proposed lot, we are proposing 2,728 square feet of building footprint. And you can see throughout the lot right behind us is 2,837 square feet of building footprint. That actually works out to be about 16.7% coverage, where 14% is permitted. Immediately across the street, you've got building footprints that are as much as 5,085 on the footprint for 10 East Beechcroft. Number 2 East Beechcroft is 4,669 square feet. That's a large ranch. The new house, as you turn, it actually becomes South Beechcroft, There's a lot that's 3,001 square feet. Again, many of these are conforming, some aren't, but the point was to show that a home that's 2,728 square foot footprint is not uncommon for the neighborhood. Many are much larger. In fact, as the architect indicated, the Wexelman residence across the street has a building footprint of 5,085. For reference, that house behind us at 12 West Beechcroft, where we share a common line, that has 5,182 square feet of floor area. That's about 30.6%. That was either done prior to the ordinance, or there was a period in our zoning history when there was no FAR requirement in these zones. It came back when we did the McMansion ordinance, and so some of these lots may have been developed during that period. I would also point out, in terms of floor area numbers, not the floor area ratio, but the floor area numbers. As Meredith indicated, we're looking for a floor area, a combined floor area of 4,848 square feet. If we look at the houses across the street, starting with 26, and working our way up through 12, 10, and 2 East Beechcroft, those are floor areas of 4,770, 4,669. The Wexelman is 8,768 square feet at 10 East Beechcroft. The corner lot, Josloff, is 6,550 square feet at 9 East Beechcroft. And so you'll see that. I've got that labeled wrong. That's Beechcroft, not East Beechcroft. So you'll see that, again, these floor areas, there's a large range of floor areas, many of which we come around the corner. Up at 7 West Beechcroft, that is a floor area of 6,150 on the 2 floors. You can see that there are a number that are large, including the one when we go back to the corner, which was the Permison residence, which actually came before the board for both a building coverage and FAR variance. That is a 4,311 square foot floor area. That is very similar to the percentage we're asking on this one at 31.5%. And the building coverage was at 2,564 on a smaller lot, which represented 18.71% coverage. And I don't mention these as being that they represent any kind of right. Obviously, when we did the Permison application, that related to that very specific property, and there were specific criteria that we met. What my only purpose in showing these numbers is to show that the size of this proposed house, both in terms of its footprint and its total combined floor area, is not uncommon for the neighborhood. And I'll talk about a little bit why. Well, when I talk about the criteria for a D variance, I'll get a little more into the specifics of this lot. I would point out that as I could certainly take much of Meredith's testimony, she kind of almost read off my list here. I could just say ditto and sit down and make the stenographer happy. But I do want to touch on a couple points. As indicated, this wide lot does give the impression and the perception of a much larger lot. By the way, the existing house setback is 42.6 to the main house. The average is 34. The actual setback to our house, though, is measured to the covered porch, because since we're over on building coverage, we don't get to take advantage of the pushing 4 feet into the front setback. So the actual setback, which should have been used for average setback, and the actual setback to the existing dwelling is 38.8 to the covered porch. The important thing to recognize, and that's the purpose of the red line, is that this is a neighborhood that almost all of the houses violate the 40-foot setback. You can see that the red line is the 34-foot setback, which is the average, and you can see that it runs basically along the frontage of the existing homes. By putting the addition on, which is shown in the blue for the 1-story and the green for the 2nd story, you can see that we're still well behind the average. We go across the street, I applied the same 34-foot setback, and there's a little bit of a parallax, so that the footprints, the foundation is actually set a little back from the roofs, but on this photograph you can see that that 34-foot setback average is kind of consistent with the Beechcrofts. So when we come in and we're looking to replicate what exists out there, and we're coming in with a front yard setback of 37.7, where the actual existing is 38.8, so we're virtually the same. And there's a little bit of, I think if you measure to the overhang, it actually matches it to the roof line, not the foundation. So clearly, we are consistent with the character of the neighborhood by matching the front, or by bringing that front offset up to the 37.7, even though it is a technical variance because 40 feet is necessary. Just to quickly go through the photographs, you can see, as Meredith was talking, these are all photographs taken by myself today. You can see Meredith indicated it is a center hall colonial with a center section that is most forward. The main body of the colonial then sets back from that, and subordinate to that is the left wing, and the further subordinate is to the right wing. And that's something that, besides the one-story addition for the dining room to come out and match or just about equal the front yard setback of the porch, everything else is layered and set back. So there's still a hierarchy in the massing that the center reads most proud, and then there's a small addition here that sits in front of and breaks up the mass and provides shade and shadow to the main body of the central portion of the colonial home. And then there's a setback you can see in the elevation A8, you can see that mass and then steps back considerably, approximately 10 feet steps back, so that this mass that comes forward and the next mass steps back more than 10 feet and then provides a new roof line to the existing hard portion of the home. That does kick out slightly laterally because the property is so wide. We're easily clear of any side yard or combined side yard setback requirement. Photograph number 3 is when you do start to come up the driveway, you can see how prominent the house is to the rear. That house to the rear is set back off our line by 17.92 feet. You look at it from in the driveway, looking back at the rear yard, where the driveway is, and the 2 rear yard garages, which are very difficult to get into, first of all, with the location of the stone wall, and secondly, the non-usability due to some of the inside obstructions really makes this both an unfortunate use of space, because there's a lot of blacktop in the rear yard, which we're able to get rid of and reduce our building coverage, and secondly, it really creates it turns non-functional garages into functional garages. And then the final photograph is looking from the rear, looking to the north, and you can see that they do have a nice backyard they've created, but it is very short, and it's clearly any additional building addition into the backyard would have violated the rear yard unoccupied, would have gotten worse. I would say that we're not actually, I think just to correct what Meredith said, we're not actually in the backyard. We actually match the backyard setback of the existing home is exactly at the 20% minimum. What is deficient is the rear yard unoccupied, and actually our new addition sits further back from that. So it's well clear of the rear setback with the new addition. And we're actually, if we take a quick look through the zoning table, which was on Meredith's drawing, A1, you'll see again the variance was required. Front yard setback, 40 feet is required. 42.6 is existing to the main house. 38.8, I believe, is to the overhang. 37.7 is to the line of the addition coming forward. And even though that matches up because there's a slight angle, it seems to be a little closer, but you could never tell the distance from the street. The other one we need a variance for is building coverage. 14% is allowable. We exist already at 14.3%. We're going up to 17.6%. That is with the addition of 519 square feet. And then finally, floor area ratio, 26% is permitted. We're at 25%. We're just under now. We're going up to 31.3. That is an addition of 974 square feet. That takes us to 31.3%, which means we're 5.3% over what's permitted. I would point out on that zoning table as well, one thing you'll see is the rear yard setback, there's basically no change. So we have not encroached on the rear yard any more than the existing house does, and Meredith was very careful not to do that. The side yard setback, you'll see 29.9 and 28.7. where 22 feet is required to the second story, so we're well clear of the setback. So this is still centered on the property with plenty of breathing space. There's no encroachment, there's no stealing of air, light, and open space to the neighbors. With regard to the rear yard unoccupied, 25% is required. We're at 11. We're getting that up to 17.1%. That's a function of removing all that pavement in the backyard. And then I would point out that on the lot coverage, we're also improving that through the removal of that pavement. We're going from 32.2 down to 31.5, where 35 is permitted. So we're well under the total amount of impervious coverage on this lot, which I think is an important metric to look at. The last thing I wanted to point out on this is on A2, the second page of A2, is we did show in a purple color, we showed where the pavement is being removed, and we did show it does actually encroach onto the neighbor's property as it gets to the front. The intent is to pull that approximately 5 feet off 5 feet plus off the property line to conform to the ordinance requirement. I also did add a line where I squared off the property from the furthest point back, just as an exercise. And if I square that off, our lot area goes up to 17,450, in which case we'd be within about 10% of the required building coverage, and within about 6% of the required FAR. If we had a 19,485 square foot lot, still not even the full 20,000. If we had a 19,485 square foot lot, we would be fully conforming as to the FAR and building coverage. And that's roughly the dashed line that kind of comes through the house behind us. So if our property was that large, which from the front, you really can never tell, you can't tell how deep it is, but if our lot projected back to that distance of that dashed line, we would meet the building, we'd meet the lot coverage, we meet the lot requirements, area requirements, we'd meet the FAR requirements, we'd meet the building coverage requirements, we'd meet the floor, the rear yard unoccupied, and certainly the rear yard setback. So all of those criteria would go away if we were something closer to a conforming lot. With regard to the variances requested, we need an FAR variance. That's a D4 variance requiring 5 affirmative votes. A floor area ratio, when it applies to residential, is a measure of the intensity of use. And the criteria for that is defined through the Randolph Town Center case, which follows the Coventry Square criteria. And using that criteria, the applicant must show that the site can accommodate the increase in FAR without substantial detriment to the public or zone plan. The applicant must show that the site can accommodate the problems associated with a floor area larger than that permitted by the ordinance. And the usual problems with excessive floor area is overcrowding on the site, loss of light, air, open space along the neighboring properties, and overwhelming the character or scale of the neighborhood. There is no hard criteria, and just when we have an FAR variance doesn't mean that if it's over, it's a bad thing. It means we need to look at the architecture and we need to look at the lot. So not only is it a function of the lot, but it's also a function of how well has the architect integrated the excess mass into the structure so as to maintain the character of the existing house and the neighborhood. We think that this wide lot can certainly accommodate the expanded house, which feels appropriate to the site, and it's certainly not the largest by any means in the neighborhood. There's no impact on the adjoining dwellings. The side yards and combined side yards are well in excess of that required. The rear yard is exactly what's required. We think that, as Ms. Colon mentioned, she was careful to variegate the roof lines, the massing, create shade and shadow to break that massing up so it still reads as the same primary center section, the subordinate wings that set back. It's just that wing now sets a little further back and comes a little further forward, but that hierarchy that breaks down that mass is something that was well respected. With regard to the, and I would say, that's the, if we go back to the variance that was granted for a similar size on that lot, because the beach crops were developed and many of the roads are not centered in the right-of-way, when we looked at that one, part of the rationale for that is that because there's almost a 25-foot setback from the edge pavement to the right-of-way, that when you drive down there, it feels like the lot was much bigger. So when we looked at for that house on a lot that was perceived from the street, it felt as though it was appropriate. And that was the rationale that applied to that lot. And so we have a different lot, so we're applying a different rationale. In this case, we have a much wider lot, significantly wider than you usually see in any of the R4 zones. It just happens to be much shallower. If we had anything near the depth, this would certainly be a completely appropriate size, both in FAR and building coverage. With regard to the criteria for the C1 variance for the front setback and the building coverage, the required front yard average is actually 34 feet. So I think when we're coming in at 37.7, we're actually exceeding the setback within the neighborhood. So I think there's no detriment to the neighborhood. The C1 variance applies where the undersized nature of the lot, the irregular shape, that's the shallow depth, and the trapezoidal shape of the property, combined with the location of the lawfully existing structure, creates a hardship in upgrading this existing dwelling without the need for variance relief. It is very difficult to add to this house in a reasonable and aesthetically appropriate manner without the need for variance relief. First of all, we're already over on building coverage to start. And again, as I said, if we were 19,500 fully conforming, even if we squared the lot off, which it feels like it is when you look down the driveway, you don't know that this property is angled. You're within about 10% of between 6 and 10% of what's permitted. With regard to the negative criteria, it's obviously the two prongs. There's no substantial detriment to the public good, and there's no substantial detriment to the master plan and zone plan. We think that there is no detriment to the public good. The architect has done an excellent job of making the building that feels appropriate to our site and is cohesive architecturally. The width of the lot makes the house feel appropriate to the neighborhood, again, 48.4% wider. We're eliminating driveway encroachment and the ordinance deviation associated with that. We're also reducing total lot coverage. We're improving the rear yard unoccupied. We're actually creating a house that is attractive and is good civic design within the community, which is a goal of the municipal land use law. And we think there's no impairment to the master plan and zoning ordinance. From the 2018 reexamination, goal number 1 on page 43 is to promote the character of the township as a small suburb of the highest quality. We think allowing the homeowner to make the house consistent with current homes in terms of program and to make the existing house more functional and programmatically logical, I think is a good thing for the community. It's a good thing for this home. We think that Objective 1.01 is to protect the character of existing residential neighborhoods and encourage land use and development at an appropriate scale and density. And so even though we have a very large, not unheard of, but a large FAR variance, we think that this home is consistent with the neighborhood, consistent with this block. We think it actually represents good planning, and we ask that you approve it.
Rich, if you could just real quick, I'm looking at the survey that was submitted, which shows a proposed 2.5-foot wall to the street, which sees into the front yard. But I don't see that on the survey. We compare number 1 and number 2. If you look at his proposed condition, 2.5-foot wall on the front yard.
I think he needs a wall, yeah, I think he needs a wall.
Oh, yeah. If we need a wall to mitigate that, we would agree to keep that in the front yard less than 2 feet or less.
And also, just to verify, I see that he's got 3-foot distance, I'm assuming that's to the wall, and then the wall is, I just wanna make sure that driveway's not gonna be.
Yeah, the intent, that is to the wall. The intent is that we're gonna pull that driveway to be 5 feet.
Okay.
Actually,
I don't-
not?
Oh, we just don't have the room.
Okay, actually, so I guess I'm wrong, so actually what that is 3 feet, and I'm assuming that's because we wanna keep away from the 40-inch Beach Tree in the front.
It's the beech tree, that's exactly right.
So we would need so even though we're reducing that from what exists today, we'd still like to keep the variance of 3 feet to the northerly property line, so that we can keep the driveway far enough from the trunk and the root system of the beech tree. So I guess, I don't know if we need a variance for that, because we're making it better. But obviously, we'd like to continue that.
All right, questions from board members of this witness? Questions from the audience of this witness? Any other witnesses, Counselor?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience who has a statement he or she would like to make with respect to this application? Counsel, do you have a closing statement?
Based on all the testimony that was provided this evening, I think this is your classic example as a C1 hardship variance that can be granted for this specific piece of property due to the trapezoidal size and irregular shape of the lot, as well as the undersized lot area. As the architect testified and as Rich also testified, the design of the building from the front will look aesthetically pleasing from the street and is in character with the existing neighborhood and scale of the houses. So we would ask this board to look favorably upon this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members? Apparently there are none.
He doesn't see them.
Oh, I have to look down that way. Yes,
He
Mary.
used to call on me all the time. I think the architect has been very sensitive to the massing of this property, and I was very happy to see the step backs and how sensitive that was in the design. I agree that the lots up in that area, the road's very narrow, it's a whole little enclave by itself, and if this lot was conforming, this application would be here. I think that it is a sensitively done application, and I'd be very happy to support it.
My comment would be that when I first drove past this property, my reaction was, what? They want to take this monster house and add to it? That's a classic example of not being right. When one looks at this excuse me, when one looks at this survey and you see that the depth of this property is nowhere near where it should be from a land use zoning point of view. And the second thing that strikes me, which of course you can't see when you drive by it, is the amount of macadam that's going to be torn up and will significantly affect one of the aspects of the zoning here. I think that this is very tastefully done, and you've made a believer out of me. Anyone else on the board? Anyone in the audience? Comments? I'll close the public portion of the meeting. Board members?
Anybody's gonna make a motion, why don't we do the FAR first?
Yes, we have to do the FAR first.
Motion to approve FAR stated?
Second.
Mary McNabb?
Yes.
Craig Butler?
Yes.
Jody Sharma?
Yes.
Joyce Siegel?
Yes.
Steve Hilder?
Yes.
Jessica Glad?
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg?
Yes. The other two variances now?
Make a motion to approve?
Second. Mary McNabb?
Yes.
Craig Butler?
Yes.
Jody Sharma?
Yes.
Joyce Siegel?
Yes.
Steve Hilder?
Yes.
Jessica Glad?
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg?
Yes.
Thank you. We appreciate your time, and we thank New Jersey Energy for letting us go. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your service.
Okay. You ready to take a little break? Yeah, we can take a little break. Go.
You might want to consider adopting the calendar before we move on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
that's a
wanted,
good
we need
idea.
to do that.
All right, there's a board members, I don't think this needs to be on the record. There's a resolution that has been presented by Eileen for the board meetings in the year of 2020, and one meeting in the first meeting in the reorganization meeting in January of 2021. Anybody have a problem with any of these meeting dates?
I tried coordinating again with,
All the various things going on in town and the
Holidays,
race, the holidays.
Good.
Jody stepped out, I just wanted to, matters.
So if we need her vote, we can get it when she comes
I
back.
don't know.
Is there anyone who would like to make a motion to accept this resolution?
Motion to accept the resolution of dates.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think we can do this by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've adopted the resolution. I just want to make one comment. Tap into Millburn, which I see has been added there in line 3 of paragraph 2. Pardon me? Well, the problem with it is, it's the words following it say said newspapers being hereby designated. It's not a newspaper. Yeah, it's an online something. Yeah, well, I think we're to clear that up. Okay, council?
Great. Matt?
Are we all here? Are we all back? Yes.
Take your time.
Back.
I think you were about to say earlier this evening.
Spot on.
That you've made an arrangement with council for the objectors
Yes, yes.
and objector?
Yes, so at our previous hearing, Mr. Rob Simon appeared on behalf of the objectors. Unfortunately, he could not make tonight's hearing. He had requested at that hearing that at the next tentative date that was scheduled before this board, we have whomever is providing testimony tonight return, so he would have that opportunity to cross-examine, and we would like to continue those wishes and have that put on the record that we will, and we do intend to bring back whomever provides testimony tonight.
Can you tell us what experts you intend to present tonight?
Yes, of course. So from the last hearing that we had, at the very conclusion, what we were doing at that moment was allowing the public to provide their cross-examination of the engineering that was provided by David Halls. So we'll start off with having David come up and reopen to the public for them to cross-examine him. At the conclusion of that, then pursuant to the board's request, David has prepared the environmental impact statement which he submitted, so he'll be providing the testimony on that report. If time were permit, following that, we would have Mr. Harold Moss propose and provide testimony regarding the traffic impact study, which he has also submitted to this board pursuant to this board's request.
All right, before you proceed, I just want to mention to the board members that when this matter was first before us, about a year ago, Eileen? I think it was about a year ago. Maybe longer. Yeah, you tried to block it out. The board agreed at that time to retain a traffic expert on behalf of the board. Now, I don't have that gentleman's name, and Eileen can't remember his name either. We both know that he was from West Orange, and he began to study the matter, and then, at our request, he stopped working because we didn't want to burden the applicant with additional fees for no reason.
Mr. Steinberg, that was Lee Klein.
Lee Klein,
Klein.
correct. Thank you very much. And now, board members, I'm going to put the matter to you. Now, if you want to wait until after we've heard the Harold Moss's traffic study, but we have in front of us a book prepared by him presumably, that he will testify to tonight, that consists of a whole bunch of pages and a lot of intersection studies, graphs, etc. And my question to the board members is based on this traffic study alone. Do you feel that the board should once again retain Mr. Klein, so that the board has some independent input on the traffic issues?
I would be in
Yes.
favor of retaining Mr. Klein.
I would as well.
Is there a motion?
Before the motion.
So doing a peer review, is that the idea?
In other words, he would
He would
review
review
the
the
report
the
submitted
report,
by the applicant.
Summary of,
and also presumably review and visit the property itself.
Mhm.
so a peer review.
Yes.
If I may, before the board takes a vote, I was just informed by my client that they also retain Mr. Lee Klein to prepare traffic studies on other sites.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Well,
Yes, since the previous application, they've used him in New York.
Okay, so then we can't use him.
can't use him.
Well, I guess the board will have to investigate another traffic engineer,
And
but
we
it
can't
sounds
do-
like the board is inclined to retain a traffic engineer in this
I will
application.
discuss the matter with council and with the secretary to the board, and we'll, by the next meeting, we'll come up with a name. Proceed.
Okay, thank you, Board Chairman. So if everybody remembers, at the last hearing that we had on October 21st, we had discussed this proposed application. What the applicant is proposing to do here tonight is they would like to reopen the pre-existing non-conforming gas station, but instead of trying to reestablish that service station, they're looking now to do a convenience store in conjunction with that. The subject property is located at 132 Millburn Avenue. Also, was discussed at that prior hearing was the business operations of the client and also what other potential, or not should I say potential, but the prior North Jersey land use approvals that they had sought during this time frame, and also prior to. Those three sites were located in Montvale, Wayne, and also in Livingston. So I just want to clarify some of that testimony that was provided to this board at that prior hearing regarding such applications. So as everybody already knows, the client's business operation is to reestablish gas stations, bring them more into conformity with zoning when applicable, and also to marry the new perspective when it comes to gas stations, that gas stations and convenience stores are a commercial use. With that being said, the three sites, that was their objective. The one in Wayne is located at 1267 Patterson-Hamburg Turnpike Road. They were approved. They were approved for the gas station, also convenience store. The one in Montvale is located at 30 South, and I apologize for butchering this name, but Kindermack Road. Kindermack, thank you, Kindermack Road. Same thing with that application as well, gas station with convenience store, and they were approved there. The last application was the Livingston application. At that hearing, there were numerous hearings before the board. Ultimately, though, the applicant decided to withdraw the application and pursue the pre-existing non-conforming gas station and service station. The applicant has advised me that they are hopeful at the end of this month that they'll be actually be able to open to the public. So they're almost done with those improvements.
So wait a minute, in Livingston, they withdrew what, the convenience store?
They
aspect
withdrew the
of it?
entire
The
application.
entire application,
Yes,
Could we,
and reopening just the gas station
with the service station.
with the service station.
Yes,
what is the address of that?
yes. It's 226 West Northfield Road.
It's on the corner of Northfield and, yeah,
Yeah, Livingston
Hillside,
Avenue.
Hillside,
Yeah.
Hillside Avenue. I know the site. Okay.
Terrific.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I know there was some discrepancy, so I just want to have an opportunity
Yes.
to clarify so everybody knew where we were with those other sites and also our business operations. With that being said, again, as I discussed before, tonight we would like to bring up David Halls to reopen again to the public and then proceed forward with the environmental impact statement, and then segue into the traffic study. So if I may first call David Halls back up.
Mr. Halls, you've been sworn, you understand that? You're still under oath? Yes?
Yes.
And just for the board's recollection, that was A2 is marked as an exhibit. It's just the colorized of the site plan.
Now, I think let's reopen it to the board members. If the board members have any questions, further questions for this witness, then we'll open it to the public. Members of the public, any questions for the engineer? I hear none, I see none. Looks like you're gonna have a short evening here.
No.
Too late for that, okay. Counsel, proceed.
All right, thank you, Board Chairman. David, did you prepare an environmental impact statement for the subject application?
Yes, I did.
And did you review the zoning ordinance, the site plans, and the state and federal regulations for the site in conjunction with the environmental impact statement requirements?
It was prepared in accordance with the town's environmental impact statement requirements.
Okay, can you please describe to the board what you found?
Basically, the synopsis we went through every category within the ordinance, specifically tried to identify every item that was asked for within the ordinance itself. The ordinance listed basically just verbatim line. It's one continuous sentence. I'll put it in the ordinance, and what we try to do is try to create the statement in a fashion where it could be read by the individual and follow each of the individual points. That's what we try to do with this. Basically, this site itself is a fully developed site in terms of the impervious coverage on the site. It's a closed gas station, service station facility, and we looked at specifically about what the impacts are going to be on the construction of the site, development of the site with itself, and within each of those parameters that are listed in the environmental impact statement, or in the impact ordinance.
Can I ask you a question, Joe?
You wanna hold the question till the,
Well, I just wanna understand one thing, does the state require a similar report, and if so, what are differences between the state requirement and the local requirement?
There is no state requirement for environmental impact statement on a local development like this. The only time you would get into a state environmental impact statement is if there's a state funding involved and you're looking for specific permitting from the state itself.
Okay.
State doesn't, like in DEP, if you're going for a wetlands permit or a flood hazard area permit, those permits don't necessarily call it an environmental impact statement, but they have different categories and they're looking for compliance statements and things of that nature to see how you fit into it.
Thank you.
So the specific components that the municipality is looking for is completely different from the different statement. Basically, the items in here that have a direct impact or that have a direct impact on the environment itself. If I could just paraphrase what's in the report, I don't know if you want me to do it that way. Specifically, there's impacts on the soils on the site and also the water quality on the site, and that is the existing conditions you have at the site. There were contaminants found on there was two occasions. If I turn to page bear with me.
I believe it's page 7.
Well, it starts on page 3 in the soils. Specifically talks about the petroleum impacts that occurred at the site. And this is in a current existing condition of the property. This is prior to any development that's occurring. This is something that should be taken note of. That there was a petroleum impacted on the soil back in 1990. There was subsoil. There was an investigation at that point in time at the former underground storage tanks, and there was a release and a case number. There was a release into the soil, by petroleum products, and there was a case number assigned with the state in 1990. With this paragraph, the 3 or 4 paragraphs on page 3, go through the history of what has occurred on the site. There's a lot of acronyms involved in there. Just so I'll be clear, it says OOS UST. That is regarding the closed or no, or their I gotta think what the underground storage tank, and their temporary out of service is the OOS, out of service. So if you're just reading that and trying to figure out what these acronyms mean, that's what how the state refers to it. Specifically, there was the petroleum release and found in 1990. Again, there was a second case that was involved in 2014. The case in 2000 from the 1990 was closed, and then again in 2014 there was additional testing that was found, and they found vertical contaminants on the site. That is still continued today, and Kleinfeld is currently the LSRP, licensed site remediation professional, that's working on the site, and they're monitoring the site today. Their proposal is to basically continue monitoring. There's no proposals to do any additional exploratory measures or any other type of measures to clean the site other than to continue monitoring as the site goes.
Quick question. 1991 was pre-LSRP, right? That was like the
That was handled by DEP.
Oh, it was, okay, so
Yes.
it's not the NFA type.
No, you would have had to, at that point in time, you held the case number, and then you were assigned a representative from DEP to handle the.
They didn't check for VOCs back then?
They did, but as far as I understand from reading the documents that we got from that they didn't find any contaminants, and the state had signed off on the.
So 2014, they got the sample that showed the VOCs in the well.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I don't know. I can't explain what happened.
Yeah, well, it's a long time.
It is a long time, and the site had actually had a. That's why they opened a second case number, and then they then combined the two cases together.
Excuse me, Joe, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Was there any reason why we would not want to have our own expert apply to this, similar to traffic, where we could have someone, third party, help the board interpret all this information and draw conclusions from it? Because quite candidly, it's way over my head. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that I'm reading that I don't know what conclusion to draw from it.
Well, in terms of the environmental stuff, the soils and the water quality issues, the applicant has a LSRP, a licensed site remediation professional, and that who handles it, all of the remedial action information under the DEP regulations, and they're held to a specific standard. And frankly, they'd be jeopardizing their own license if they did something inappropriate. In terms of other issues, the township has an engineer, a professional engineer. You're certainly free to have the township engineer review this EIS, and provide the board with any comments or summary about any of the issues.
Well, seeing as how we're doing it with traffic, and
That's a little bit different, we don't really have, the township engineer really does not do traffic engineering specialty.
I agree, but I mean, I view this as important, if not more, than traffic, and so I thought that's why I would warrant the recommendation.
I think my view would be that we could ask the township engineer that question.
Yeah.
Does she think, based on what she sees here, we need a environmental specialist to advise the board.
Something along those
Yeah.
lines.
But you would definitely want to start with the township engineer's
Yeah, I
office.
agree.
I mean, I would be very comfortable with that, so.
The LSRP is not beholden to them at all. I mean,
Right.
they're reporting directly to DEP. So, you know, you have to really take the LSRP at face value. If they say that the site is under remediation and they're satisfied, everyone's gonna be satisfied.
There are
I mean,
other
that's-
issues, obviously,
Yeah.
besides soil and water quality
Right.
in the EIS. But as for those two issues, you know, anything that's being done by the LSRP, that is the process now under the DEP regulations.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who feels the way I do about having, somebody who understands this better
I
than
think that we
do
can
to
ask
review
the
this,
township
so.
engineer
Yeah, we
to
can ask
review
the
the
township.
this
Okay.
entire document
That'd be good.
and tell us if she feels we need additional
Okay,
assistance.
is that a motion? Do we just?
No, I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
While we're kind of like getting off track, I just want to confirm on page 8 that there is just a typographical error, because on the approvals required, the report indicates preliminary and final subdivision approval. I believe that's inaccurate. I believe it's site plan approval. So I just, on the record, want to clarify for everybody on the board that this case does not involve any subdivision whatsoever. It's preliminary and final site plan approval, major site plan approval.
You are correct.
Okay.
I typed it wrong.
Yep, no big deal.
Yeah,
Just
it's,
wanted to clarify.
I've read this thing so many times and, you know.
You just buzz right past it. I've done it myself many times.
Specifically, the other points, if we, the impacts on the site itself, this goes to, this is a fully improved site. It's 92% impervious right now. So the environmental impacts, or the existing environmental quality of the site is very poor, because it's already paved. Specifically, the points where there vegetation, aquatic life, any of that associated, is that short little strip that's along the east branch of the Rawway River. And that portion of the property is going to remain in the same fashion as today. We are modifying the riparian buffer, and that we're taking away some of the existing asphalt along that area and expanding it. So there is a benefit to the proposal, but while it's going from 92% to 77%, it's in terms of the impervious area, the impacts on the site is fairly small in terms of what benefits really are with the whole entire site. But there is going to be a benefit with the improvement once it's done. And the report goes through all the flooding that's associated with the brook. It's fully, it's going to be meeting all the requirements in terms of DEP. The prior gas station there, that building was actually in the floodway. That structure is no longer going to be a viable structure, so there is some improvement in that sense, and that's all spelled out within the EIS itself. And we go through, there's the sewage, the water, there's no impacts on either one of those. The proposed use is very similar to what the prior use was. There's no impacts with those utilities. The aquifer, there'll be no impacts. We're not pulling water out of the aquifer for irrigation or anything like that, so there will be no impact with the aquifer. If anything, by us removing asphalt, has potential of infiltrating more water into the ground and has a benefit. Again, these are small benefits, but they are a benefit. There would be no change in the topography, no change in the slope of the property. The vegetation, any of the vegetation that's currently on the site that has any quality measures is going to be along the river itself, and that again is going to remain in the same condition. We are going to be adding additional landscaping along the river, and we'll enhance it. However small it is, there will be an enhancement. And then we'll add landscaping around the site, which will also be a benefit.
What page do you want, please?
Oh, I was, briefly, that was on page 5, the bottom of page 5. We did go out and make observations of the site. We did not find any wildlife. There may be some type of habitat. It might be very small, and that would be associated along with the brook itself. Same with the aquatic organisms would be along the brook. Again, we're not impacting anything along the brook corridor, but we do add landscaping by removing some of the impervious area within the riparian buffer. That will be a benefit by the proposed development. And we are adding some shade trees again. The shade trees along that riparian buffer may have an impact on aquatic organisms within the brook itself. I'm sorry.
I just wanna know, is light level one of the
It is not.
characteristics that's not required?
It is not, no, because that's a man-made item and it's not within the EIS.
But noise
Noise is, that is correct.
And noise is not man-made.
I take out the word man-made before. I don't know why lighting is included, but it's not. I've never seen it involved in an EIS report before. The noise levels, specifically, we did, the site itself is a very similar use of what was currently there in terms of the gas station. The only noise level that will be a reduction for is the gas station, or the service station had power tools. You might remember the power tools and the service garage doors being opened. They make a loud noise. That type of noise would be eliminated. But that's the only thing that we could see that otherwise the use is very similar to the previous use that was there.
Would there be additional noise from the convenience store? Would there be additional noise levels because of the convenience store?
No, it'll be very similar to what you would have with the service station that was there. They'll have trucks and vehicles moving in and out of the station. The convenience store will have trucks moving in and out for deliveries. So the use, the noise level generated by the use is very similar to what it was. It would be, there might be power equipment in terms of that, but the air conditioning levels will all meet current standards.
I'm talking about noise.
That's what I mean. The
state
decibel
noise
levels
code.
will meet the New Jersey noise code levels.
What about additional noise from, like, customers? Like, you know, say that it's open later than the gas station, than the service station was, like, people coming in and out, or maybe sitting there and, you know.
It's not going to be though, right?
No, it's, we had testified previously on the hours of operation that both the convenience store and the service station would close, I believe at 11 p.m. it was.
But the previous, like, repair part didn't stay open till 11.
But that noise level would still be below the state noise level, so I don't know that would be any difference in that. The types of noise would all be the same. I didn't look at it in terms of the actual hours of operation in terms of the previous use when that closed for comparison.
In the state guidelines, is there like a particular noise level that's generated from a retail use that sells, you know, whatever they sell? Is
No,
there
what
a
the state,
standard?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
What the state specifies the decibel levels that are permitted, both during daytime hours and also nighttime hours. The daytime hours, the decibel level is 60 decibels.
I thought it was 65. Is it 60?
It's 65. I'm reading the number. It does say 65, and I'm
Okay.
saying 60.
Right, I'm sorry. I just happen to know that, so that's why I'm
I'm glad you corrected me. It is 65 decibels, and during the nighttime, it's 50 decibels. 65 decibels is pretty loud.
Is it?
Yeah.
How do you know though? I know, like, as an architect, the square footages for certain uses. How do you know what the noise level is for a convenience store? I'm just curious.
The convenience store noise level will be the same. The store and the associated equipment around it, that could be their AC units, you know, trucks coming in and banging doors and everything else. That's very similar to what you would have for any type of retail use. any other type of retail use that you might have in a strip mall or something like that, that's the type of noise level that you'll get with that type of use. The convenience store will have a very benign noise level. The people walking in and out of the store, yes, you could have some people yelling at each other, raising their voices or things like that, but that's not that specific use isn't necessarily generating that.
What about trucks backing up with the beeping? That's mandated by.
You will get that noise, the beeping, and that's the same. You would get with any type of service station use, or also the deliveries when you get with any type of commercial use where you have deliveries. The potential for backing up those things, but I don't necessarily associate with that specific use causes those things to that decibel level to raise or to be a noisier type of use because it's a convenience store as opposed to any other type of retail use or even the other uses that are permitted in the zone.
I mean, candidly, there's a lot of traffic that goes by that site all the time. That generates a lot of noise, maybe more noise than you'll actually hear from the site itself. Have you looked at that?
And no, I don't, because we're looking specifically at the use itself, and we're not looking at trying to encompass the surrounding road surfaces and saying, well, wait a second, our use is more. We didn't look at it in terms of what's our impact onto the roads. We left that off. We were just specifically looking at the site.
David, is it your expert testimony that the proposed convenience store would provide less sound decibels than the prior existing service station?
The convenience store will be less than what the service automobile service garage was.
Okay, and do you believe that the proposed potential decibels for the convenience store would be less than the permitted 65 decibels during the daytime and 50 decibels at nighttime?
I do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But can I follow up, but the hours will be different, right? Of the convenience store to the.
Yeah, I didn't look at it when specifically the hours we're looking at. I was looking at specifically, is the use, the noise levels, are they gonna be compatible with what was there?
So they'll be compatible, but the amount of time that.
Yeah,
It's not the same,
if the
right?
service station was closed the same time that the prior service station was closed the same time that ours is going to be open, yes, that decibel level would be
No,
different.
I meant like, the convenience store hours are different than they used to have like a repair shop.
Yeah, the convenience store does not generate a lot of the noise. The noise is going to be, the service gas station is going to be as much noise or if more than the convenience store. The air quality, again, there's going to be we did look at the air quality specifically for the use itself. We did also look at the air quality. There are air quality stations across the whole state. On page 7, the second paragraph from the end specifically goes to that we did look at the air quality for Essex County. There is one monitoring station in Essex County, and that's at a Newark firehouse. I can't tell you exactly which firehouse that is, but the air quality in overall since 1965 has been specifically getting better historically, and that the last year for available information was 2017, and only one day in Essex County had unhealthy or sensitive group warning. And that was only one day, as opposed to the rest of New Jersey had 19 days. So just to give you a comparison, the air quality in Essex County is fairly good compared to and just so you know where the unhealthy areas were, they were the southern part of the state by Camden and such. And according to the reports, that has a lot to do with the air being moved from out of state into New Jersey, so.
Excuse me. I think I see another typo. Take a look at page 7, 3 lines from the bottom.
Right.
Out of service, not out of surface. SERVICE.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I'll send you my bill.
You'll probably get as much as you get paid tonight.
As much as I'm paid tonight.
And then overall, we looked at the unavoidable adverse impacts on the site, and most of those have to do with construction itself. During construction, there is a potential impact on the air quality. That's immediately during the construction, removing the existing gas station, doing the excavation. There might be dust in the air or something else that might cause an issue. Those are basically they'll be controlled through soil erosion control measures. There might be dust control, things like that. That all does go towards potentially air quality issues and also soil erosion sediment control issues. And those are all impacts that are basically unavoidable because of construction itself. But those are the only impacts that we saw that overall you have with the site. Increase in traffic and such, you'll hear from the traffic engineer specifically about that, but we believe that the traffic impacts will be very similar, or they will not impact on the adjoining roadways, but I'm going to leave that up to the traffic engineer specifically. We did not find a need for any increase in township services or consequences on the township tax structure from this. We did look at those also. That was required under the EIS requirements, so we did look at that. And then the last thing was the destruction or damage to existing flora and fauna. And that would be if there was existing, we believe there's one tree, I believe it has to come down with this, and it's right near the old foundation to the building. It might even be a sapling, but it's not a very large tree. But that was the only tree I believe that has to come down on the site. Other than that, there's minimal impacts on the flora and fauna. And that was basically what the EIS was.
And David, just to reiterate, the original impervious coverage that exists today is 92%, correct?
Yes.
And then the proposed application will be reduced to 77%?
Yes.
Is your expert testimony that will actually benefit the stormwater runoff to all sites, including the Rawley River?
Yes.
Is your expert testimony that the actual proposed application will overall benefit the environmental impact? Although not substantial, it will in some nominal circumstances.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any more questions from the board?
Yeah, quick question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Back to the noise issue. The difference between what you're proposing and what was there would indicate that maybe there is a congregating aspect to the convenience store, and perhaps folks would congregate there and generate noise in that regard. Do you have any experience with that?
The only thing I can say is, aside from the environmental impacts, Dave, I'll answer it this way in terms of if you have congregated, that would be the service, the owner's responsibility to police that in some fashion, to ask or move along the public so it does not become a congregating area. That's the only best way I can answer that. That would be an internal policing issue.
So in 1990, you had the first leak with the UST system that was there, and in 1991 it was replaced. Is that correct? The UST system was replaced.
That's, as I understand it, that's what the records show. Yes.
So then, and they went OOS status at that time. So it was replaced and went right to OOS status.
I don't know why. I got this information from the LSRP, and he did not get into any detail specifically about what happened in 1991. He just gave me the synopsis, and I talked to him about it specifically about the history of the thing, but he didn't give me.
So,
So I can't talk to specifically about the actual history of what would have happened at that point in time.
If you like, Board Chairman, I can bring up the actual applicant, he can discuss on that specific issue itself.
Okay, because I was also wondering
Yeah.
what the intention is to use the current UST system that's now 30 years old.
I don't know, actually, I'm not gonna answer that. I'll leave it up to him. He's gonna have to discuss that.
I have a question for, on page 6, on the pedestrian traffic. Can you just give your testimony on how many driveways will there be on Millburn Avenue and on Vauxhall?
Presently, there's 2 driveways on each street. And there's a driveway there on each street close to the intersection itself. Those 2 driveways are to be closed. And then
The one that's close to the intersection?
both driveways that are close to the intersection on each street will be closed.
Okay.
And the second driveway that's further from the intersection on each street is to remain. We are going to reconstruct them, but in a similar location as they are today.
And what's the motivation behind it? Does it reduce some of the traffic?
It
or
does 2 things. Number one is when you're coming out closer to the intersection, it's not a safe movement at the intersection because you're relying on the traffic that's passing by on the roadways to yield to you exiting off, or you're looking for a long enough gap between cars so you exit out of the driveway or enter into the driveway. And as you get closer to the intersection, you might have a issue with when you exit out of the driveways. They might cause a issue with how the intersection functions. So you want your driveways as far away from the intersection as possible when you're designing a site. And in this case, by us closing off those driveways, it'll have a direct benefit to the traveling public and also the pedestrians, because the pedestrians won't have to be concerned about crossing a second driveway closer to the intersection. So it has 2 benefits.
Could you turn to page 22 and help us understand what this report is telling us, this remedial timeframe notification form, specifically current regulatory timeframe, proposed regulatory timeframe? What are we looking at here?
This is the actual report. I decided to put the actual report in that was filed with DEP. I don't file these reports, so I can't specifically, I didn't really look at it in terms of review it, in terms of know why there's certain things in certain columns.
Do you know the significance of these 2 dates?
I do not.
Again, Board, if you would please the Board, we can bring up the applicant, he can answer those questions
Okay.
specific to the site remediation.
Thank you.
There's another typo, page 6, 3 lines to the bottom. It's Vauxhall, 1 word, road.
Then it's in several places.
Yes.
It's all over the place. That last paragraph has it in there 3 times. I'd ask you to stop reading my report, but.
Any other questions for this witness? Anyone in the audience have any questions? Come forward, please. You do not have to be sworn, but we need your name and your address.
Sure. Hi, good evening. I'm Sherry Barshow-Create from 12 Reeve Circle.
You have to spell your last name?
Sure. Just the Sherry Barshow-Create. It's not hyphenated, B-A-R-R, not hyphenated. Yeah? B-A-R-R, S-H-O-K-R-I-E-H. That's it.
P-A-R-R-S-H-O-K.
R-I-E-H. 2 names not hyphenated. Sorry for going fast.
Ask your question.
Okay. I think this is more of a point of clarification, if you will. I've lived on Reeve Circle for over 30 years, and I've gotten many of these letters since all of this situation with the previous gas station began and the contaminants. This I just got last month. Is this what you were referring to? Is this the company that you're associated with? Arcadis, if I'm saying it right. I don't know if this is something that you were referring to. This certified letter that I just got last month refers to the fact that there are currently contaminants in the soil and the groundwater, and that was mentioned, and it says, essentially, stay tuned.
He's reviewing it.
Reading.
Yeah, this is not the firm I was talking to. This may be a consultant that they use. The owner would have to, maybe he can answer that question. I can't answer that question.
Okay, but
You
it's
wanna
not your
indicate
people.
who sent you that letter?
Arcadis,
Spell it.
ARCADIS, Designs and Consultancy, is that what that said?
Yes, it's,
Do you want a copy of
it
this?
came from the staff geologist from the firm.
Do they say who they represent?
They
On the
do
next-
not.
on the
It just
next
says that it's, that you're receiving this letter as part of the DEP notification and public outreach requirements.
On
This-
behalf of New Jersey, excuse me for interrupting.
Oh, you have
on
a second
behalf-
letter.
It's the second page.
Oh.
On behalf of New Jersey Energy Realty?
Yeah, that's the
That's the company.
owner. Yeah,
That's the applicant.
So then you're aware of that.
Yeah.
So then thank you for clarifying that. So then that brings me to my next question. The construction and the air quality, effect that you mentioned, would that be affected by the contaminants, or would they clear this up before they begin doing anything?
No, the contamination is at some distance below the ground. It's actually on the water table level that they're
Okay.
finding the groundwater contamination. The excavation, I believe, did I tell you the depth? I don't remember.
I don't know.
No, I'm gonna just, I know you're not gonna know,
Did you bring a copy of that letter with you?
Yeah.
Could you give it to our secretary, please?
Absolutely, here's two.
And she can make sure that board members have a copy.
Somewhere along the line, I remember the contamination is something in the order of 8 feet below the surface of the ground. I don't remember if it's in my report or not. But none of our excavation is gonna be that deep that it would impact any of the contamination itself. So that when I refer to the air quality and things like that, that'll be removing the asphalt. There might be, during construction, there might be dust in the air, or something of that nature, but that'll all be from the surface, ground surface, it won't be from the contaminants under the ground.
And if the project moves forward, the remediation does not have to be finished before the project moves forward?
That's correct.
That's correct? Okay, and then one little tiny point of clarification. I remember when the gas station that blew up was active, the service station, and it was not open until 11 o'clock. It was more like, because I used to go fill up the air on my bicycle, that's how I know, in the tires, and it was more like 8 o'clock, maybe 9, but not late. Just a point of clarification.
And
Thank
what
you.
number Reeve Circle are you?
I'm at 12.
12.
Yeah,
Thank you.
close to the corner, so I get these letters all the time.
That
Thanks.
means you're within 200 feet.
200 feet, that's me, thank you.
Come forward. Give us your name and your address, please.
Ann Rosenthal, 25 Reeve Circle. And I've been on Reeve Circle for 58 years. And I can tell you that the station that was there when I moved in no way the size of the station you're now talking about. It was very small. It did not generate that much traffic. There was never a convenience store.
Can we save this for the?
Ms. Rosenthal.
Yeah, this is a
not
question.
statement.
Time
The
for
question
questions.
is, I want to know, are the tanks going to be removed that were there before?
You'll hear that from the owner. I
I
don't
don't
have
have
the
owner's
answer.
testimony. He'll provide that. In
Okay.
regards to everything regarding site remediation.
Okay, because I'm asking if those tanks have to be looked at because they've been in the ground there for many, many years. And,
He's apparently going to answer those
He's gonna,
questions.
yeah.
okay. And you mentioned before some of the other stations that you have been involved in.
Yes.
It appears to me that they're in high-trafficked areas, not anything like Millburn Avenue.
So what's your question?
So the question is, how can you compare what you're planning to put on Millburn Avenue comparing to what you have before? I believe that you're expecting that there's going to be much more traffic. Is that so?
Well, everything is site specific. We weren't comparing anything. I believe we were answering a question from the objector's attorney. I guess that's what we're.
Yes.
Yeah. He asked if I had been involved in other gas station projects. That's what the question was about. Had nothing to do with taking those designs and transposing them and putting them in this location.
Well, I'm very concerned, and I just want to ask you, with the other stations that have the convenience store, have there ever been any problems with the fact that they're open for late hours, and the kind of clientele they're getting at that hour exactly, are not really going for gas as much as to what they may be doing in the convenience store or looking for in the convenience store?
I really can't answer that question. It can't relate to this site at all.
We recently had some issues on Reeve Circle, which are
Yeah.
concerned.
No statements, questions only.
Okay, and I'm concerned, have you had any problem with the convenience stores, any kind of problems with the fact that there have to be police and things of that sort?
Again, that question's not
Yeah.
germane to the testimony he
This,
provided before this board.
he's here as the engineer, so
Okay.
the question you're asking is not really addressed to his
Sorry.
credentials.
One other small question, and it's for the fact that we should have had more people here tonight, and I looked at the item for 2 consecutive weeks, and I did not see that this meeting was going to be held tonight for this hearing.
It was carried to this date,
It was carried at the last.
at the last
We
meeting.
announced it here.
It was at the last meeting, but that's part of the reason why we don't have most of the neighbors at a time
That's
when
the
we've got
problem
2
with the item.
holidays going at once and people involved with families.
Well,
So,
it doesn't get published in the item unless it has to be renoticed. And it won't get republished in the item. The applicant's obligation is to publish in the item one time. And if we are present at the hearing here and we announce in this meeting that we're carrying the case to another date, the applicant has no obligation to put it in the newspaper again. The only time it would get put in the newspaper a second time is if a meeting got canceled. For example, we had a meeting on December 2nd that got canceled because of the snow and the municipal building was closed. So any applications that were on that evening could not be carried to a new date. All of those people have to renotice. But if we are present in this room at the end of this meeting and we say, okay, this case is gonna be carried to such and such a date, it will not appear again in the newspaper.
Also,
That's-
all our minutes are online.
Right.
And they're carried in the minutes, requested, and our agendas are also posted on the township
Yeah.
website.
So you'd have to look at the township website to see that information.
okay, thank you.
I have no further questions. Oh, sorry.
Or is there anyone else who has come forward and state your name and your address, please?
Hi, Merrily, Merrily, Reesbeck, Riesebeck, 91 Whittingham Terrace, Millburn. Okay, just for point of clarification, a few minutes ago, in the discussion, you said you didn't look at the impact on the surrounding road, just the site itself. What was that in reference for?
That was in reference to the environmental impact statement.
Ah, I see. Okay. And I don't know if it's the appropriate time to ask this, but at the last meeting, when you were being questioned by the other attorney from the Millburn Mall, he asked if you were aware of the ordinance to not sell food and drink in this zone. Is that relevant for this discussion, or is that for the
That's a
owner
planning
or whatever?
question, and we'll have our planner come on a later date, provide a testimony related to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the audience?
I have no further questions for this witness. I'd like to call my second witness, traffic
Hold on,
engineer.
we had some follow-up questions on this report. You were gonna bring the owner up to address?
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Is that, did you? that
That's
was
not a
your-
problem. Yeah, absolutely. Scott?
Yeah, I don't remember him being sworn before.
I don't think I spoke last time. I do. Scott Parker, SCOTTPARKER. 536 Main Street, New Paltz, New York.
Scott, can you please describe to the board your position at NJ Energy?
I'm the director of facilities. I oversee the maintenance, environmental, and construction for our company.
And for those applications that were brought up previously regarding Montvale, Wayne, and also Livingston, did you operate in the same capacity for those applications as well?
I did.
Okay, and have you been working with myself and the other professionals throughout the entire course of this application?
I have.
And can you please provide to the board some of the answers that they are looking for regarding the history of the site remediation? I believe that Chairman Craig was the first individual to bring up a question regarding the UST of 91.
So let me see if I answer or if I remember your question correctly. You asked about when contamination was discovered, when the tanks were replaced. It's my understanding, and I'm not the LSRP on this. As was kind of discussed before, the LSRP is someone that we pay for, but they don't technically work for us. They report to the DEP. But it is my understanding that in 1990 there was an investigation done. We did not own the property at the time. They did identify some contamination, possibly as a result of that. I'm not sure if it was. The existing underground storage tank system was removed and replaced. That system, I'll roll into one of the other answers here. That system is still in place. It will be, once we start to move forward with development, it will be the decision of the DEP as to whether we can reuse the current system. The current system is, as you stated, I guess close to 30 years old, but it is state of the art. It is
double fiberglass.
It's double wall fiberglass tanks. There is not in New Jersey a sunset or a lifespan or anything like that on. So it's really just removing something, throwing it out just to put the same thing back in. But again, that's going to be at the discretion, the direction of the DEP as to whether we can reuse them. There's a process for when you put tanks back in service. We would have to follow that, and if any time along the way the DEP said no, then we'd have to pull them and put new ones in.
No.
Regarding the report that begins on page 22.
Oh, the extension.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm familiar with these. I haven't reviewed this one in particular, but as part of the process, there are certain time frames for when the LSRP is required to submit reports to the DEP. An extension request typically just means that they are asking for an extension on that deadline to submit that report. And it looks like it's the remedial action report. They might have had to do more investigation or continue to work on their design in order to submit it to DEP. But that's what this is. It's just asking for an extension of the deadline for the submittal of this report to DEP. And DEP, if they feel it's appropriate, will approve, and if not, they'll deny. But again, I don't know this one in particular.
And not very specifically, but this report will contain what information?
A remedial action plan is really just that. It's a remedial action report. I'm sorry. So that's it basically will tell you how the remedial action, what the result of it was, and where they stand currently, and then it'll be a determination from DEP as to whether they can close out those cases or, there's no NFAs anymore, as some people might know. But
and just to clarify, one of the questions one of the residents asked. The remediation, the construction can go on before the remediation is completed? How does that work?
When we talk about construction, there was some discussion as to, how deep we have to excavate, what we have to, if we're just building the building, and
there's no remediation required, then we can go ahead and build the building. If the DEP decides that they want us to replace the tanks, obviously anything that's encountered during that tank removal and replacement, which is done under the oversight of an LSRP, constant monitoring, if there's anything identified, it would be required to be addressed at that time.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And again, a remedial action plan is at the discretion of.
I'm sorry, it's a remedial action report. I said plan, I was wrong on that.
But I'm going to the remedial action plan itself.
Okay.
That would be pursuant to the discretion of the LSRP who reports to DEP, correct?
That is correct.
And.
I'm sorry, LSRP stands for what?
Site Remediation Professional.
Okay, and reports to who?
DEP.
Which is?
New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
Okay, thanks.
So essentially what was happening back in the 90s is that they were getting so backlogged that they decided to hire individual licensed professionals so that they could speed it.
We do pay them, but they report to the DEP. It's kind of like your consultants that you bill us for. Joe McCormick is our environmental director. He works for me.
Our, meaning your company?
Our company, correct.
And he works for you, did you say?
That is correct.
But the LSRP is Kevin Toth, whose name and numbers appear on this, this application form.
And I can clear up, now that brings me to the whole Kleinfelder Arcadis thing we just discussed, right? Again, I'd have to look at the specifics of, I believe the initial site investigations were done by a company called Kleinfelder, but since 2012, Arcadis has been our LSRP company, you know, our consultant.
Oh, so this individual works for them?
I'll have to see exactly what you're looking at, but the letter that the resident submitted from Arcadis, they are the current LSRP on the project, or on the property.
Okay, but that individual who's your LSRP, what's his name again? You just talked.
Where is that
It's
listed?
Kevin Toth on page 24.
Right, so he works for Arcadis?
He works for EnviroTrack Limited.
They have a lot of times, and I could get the structure for you, but a lot of times Arcadis will hire an independent LSRP. There are different structures that are, you know, a lot of these guys are independent, like an attorney, for example. You know, it's separate from, so Arcadis does all the field work, all the sampling and all that, and then they pull in an expert.
So you hire
LSRP.
Arcadis, and Arcadis hires Kevin Toth?
And this one specifically, I'd have to check that, but probably, yeah.
Thank you.
So you're responsible for the monitoring wells that's on that property. You're obviously paying for that service, right?
Yes. So any monitoring that's going on there, we are paying for, but it's being done under the direction of the LSRP. Yeah.
And to go back to your question, when you said the reason for the extension, you know, you talked about why this was filed. If you look on page 23, the very beginning of that has a section that requires the LSRP to list the justification for that extension. And that LSRP that submitted this application, Kevin Toth, has indicated they want to extend that time frame because they're conducting routine groundwater monitoring. And they want to allow more time so that there could possibly be some more natural attenuation of the contamination.
Great, thank you. Now we have it on the record.
Okay.
There is not.
Do you know whether or not this request for extension has been granted?
I do not know the answer to that.
So you still treating for the VOCs that were found in 2014? I'm playing your guy. I said, are you still treating for the VOCs that were found in 2014?
There is no active remediation going on at the site currently.
What is natural attenuation?
It basically is going away,
Right.
for lack of a better term,
Right.
by natural means.
Yeah.
By natural
It's
means.
dissipating, it's migrating, it's.
You drank it.
Yeah, basically, into the water supply of food chain.
Any other questions from the audience?
I'm sorry if this seems dense. Say my name again? Sherry Bar Chokrier. Should I spell it for you again? We good? Okay, thank you. I apologize if I'm being dense about this, but I want to go back to this letter, just to be clear.
I might have the answer for you, but I
Yeah,
can
you probably
get-
will, because the name that you mentioned is in this letter I got.
Okay.
This letter says that there is currently remediation going on. But somebody asked that question, and the answer was, no, there is not.
It is
Did
my
I hear that
understanding
wrong?
there is not. If I can read the letter, I might be able to.
Absolutely. Maybe I'm missing something.
Let him read the letter.
It says that the letters inform you that activities are being conducted to remediate environmental impacts. I don't think that's a specific enough, this is probably a form letter that they use on their outreach, but again, we can get that more information for you.
But it says right there.
These
that's
efforts
different?
are prompted by the presence of gasoline-related constituents in the soil and groundwater. Well, this is gonna be in the record, right? This letter isn't from me, we can.
That's all right, he wants you to read it again.
These efforts are prompted by the presence of gasoline-related constituents in the soil and groundwater. The work may involve soil sampling and periodic groundwater sampling. So that actually states that it is not remediation, that's monitoring currently.
So all right, so maybe I wasn't clear.
No,
It
they're not
informs
clear.
activities being conducted to remediate is not the same as remediation. Is that what we're saying?
They worded that poorly. There's not currently remedial activity going on.
This was your
on the site.
consultant, so I thought maybe you would know. Okay,
Right, but
yeah, okay.
in this environmental impact statement, this report that we've been discussing, which is on pages 22 through 24, I believe it is, it specifically says they want to conduct routine groundwater sampling. And then it says they want to plan for quarterly groundwater sampling. So that goes along with that letter. They're telling you that they're conducting sampling in relation to this groundwater monitoring of an incident that resulted in a DEP case file being initiated back in the 90s and back in 2014. So DEP requires them to send those notices out to you periodically.
So that doesn't mean that it's remediation, it means what you
They're
said.
doing this sampling.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
And by the way, this report that we're talking about is on file in Eileen's office, so you're free to, go down there and take a look at it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Any questions from the board for this witness? From the audience? Next witness.
So we're close to our hour and a half,
Yeah,
right? So,
20 after.
do we wanna start with this witness
I'll be
now?
honest, with Mr. Simon not here tonight, it might be wise, we've done Mr. Hall's, Mr. Simon's gonna want the opportunity to cross-examine his, I'm sure, on his testimony regarding the EIS. I'm not sure if you wanna go on and hear traffic testimony at this point. It's 20 after 10. How far are you gonna get?
Right.
Oh, yeah. What time was it when I said an hour and a half? I didn't even look.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock? Well, we can go 10 minutes if you want to start with it. Or would you like to just put it off?
We can see whatever the board recommends.
I think it might be a good idea to put it off.
I do too.
So, our next date, now that we've adopted a calendar, our next available date, I should say.
Give it back to Eileen and ask her if she can, Eileen, can you replicate that letter and make sure every board member has it?
Will you provide counsel with a copy as well?
Yeah.
So we only have one meeting in January. It's gonna have to be February. So February, the meetings would be February 3rd. That's the only meeting in February too. Oh,
The other one is what?
President's Day.
President's Day.
So February 3rd, does that work for you, council?
Yeah, that works.
Mr. Maltz, February 3rd? Okay. Mr. Halls, will you be here again? Okay, February 3rd.
And at that
I'm
time,
gonna make
Yes, it's a Monday.
I'm gonna make a formal announcement that this matter is being carried to the evening of February 3rd at 7 o'clock in this room at the municipal building on Millburn Avenue.
And you should tell your neighbors, because it's not gonna be in the paper. Not a problem.
February 3.
if I may, I know it's not part of the jurisdiction of this board, but my client has advised me that they are being charged an annual fee for having a vacant site. With that being said, I'd humbly request if we could be allotted more than an hour and a half at the February 3rd meeting, just so that we could help push along this application to its ultimate determination.
Problem is, we always have a full docket of residential cases.
I understand.
And
We'll do the best
even
we
though
can.
there's not one, there won't be a holdover from tonight, because I think we dealt with every other case on the agenda. Well, you already have, January is booked?
I don't know, I don't have the schedule with me. If you wanna put them on for the January, it's not January.
No, February 3rd, but what they're asking is, can they have more time on February 3rd than an hour and a half?
I don't have any, I have nothing on February 3rd agenda.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So the answer is that,
yes, we'll give
the
you,
answer was, we'll give you at least 2 hours.
you know.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
part of the problem is when an application gets filed, once it's deemed complete, we have to get it on an agenda within 45 days. So with one meeting in January and one meeting in February, we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
Sure.
So,
You'll have 2 hours.
Thank you. Thank you, board. Happy holiday.
yes,
Thank you.
happy holiday. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Jody, we adopted the calendar while you were out of the room. Hope you didn't have any problem with any of the dates. Okay.
I'm good.
You want a motion to
Okay.
adjourn?
Is there a motion to adjourn? Well,
not
is there anyone in the audience who has a matter to bring before the board that is not on tonight's agenda? I hear none. I see none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
So we see each other next year, right?
Yes?
Yeah.
See you next year.
See you next year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.